gives you a ton of freedom. But Meta, in addition, has also released assistant models. So if you just like to have a question answer, you can use that assistant model and you can talk to it. Okay, so those are the two major stages. Now see how in stage 2 I'm saying and or comparisons? I would like to briefly double click on that because there's also a stage 3 of fine-tuning that you can optionally go to or continue to. In stage 3 of fine-tuning, you would use comparison labels. So let me show you what this looks like. The reason that we do this is that in many cases, it is much easier to compare candidate answers than to write an answer yourself if you're a human labeler. So consider the following concrete example. Suppose that the question is to write a haiku about paper clips or something like that. From the perspective of a labeler, if I'm asked to write a haiku, that might be a very difficult task, right? Like I might not be able to write a haiku. But suppose you're given a few candidate haikus that have been generated by the assistant model from stage 2. Well, then as a labeler, you could look at these haikus and actually pick the one that is much better. And so in many cases, it is easier to do the comparison instead of the generation. And there's a stage 3 of fine-tuning that can use these comparisons to further fine-tune the model. And I'm not going to go into the full mathematical detail of this. At OpenAI, this process is called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF. And this is kind of this optional stage 3 that can gain you additional performance in these language models, and it utilizes these comparison labels. I also wanted to show you very briefly one slide showing some of the labeling instructions that we give to humans. So this is an excerpt from the paper Instruct GPT by OpenAI. And it just kind of shows you that we're asking people to be helpful, truthful, and harmless. These labeling documentations, though, can grow to tens or hundreds of pages and can be pretty complicated. But this is roughly speaking what they look like. One more thing that I wanted to mention is that I've described the process naively as humans doing all of this manual work, but that's not exactly right, and it's increasingly less correct. And that's because these language models are simultaneously getting a lot better, and you can basically use human-machine sort of collaboration to create these labels with increasing efficiency and correctness. And so, for example, you can get these language models to sample answers, and then people sort of like cherry pick parts of answers to create one sort of single best answer. Or you can ask these models to try to check your work, or you can try to ask them to create the comparisons, and then you're just kind of like in an oversight role over it. So this is kind of a slider that you can determine. These models are getting better. We're moving the slider sort of to the right. Okay, finally, I wanted to show you a leaderboard of the current leading large language models out there. So this, for example, is the chatbot arena. It is managed by a team at Berkeley. And what they do here is they rank the different language models by their ELO rating. And the way you calculate ELO is very similar to how you would calculate it in chess. So different chess players play each other, and you, depending on the win rates against each other, and you pick the winner. And then depending on who wins and who loses, you can calculate the ELO scores. So the higher, the better. So what you see here is that crowding up on the top, you have the proprietary models. These are closed models. You don't have access to the weights. They are usually behind a web interface. And this is GPT series from OpenAI and the Claude series. And there's a few other series from other companies as well. So these are currently the best performing models. And then right below that, you are going to start to see some models that are open weights. So these weights are available, a lot more is known about them, there are typically papers available with them, and so this is, for example, the case for Llama 2 series from Meta, or on the bottom you see Zephyr 7b beta, that is based on the Mistral series from another startup in France. But roughly speaking, what you're seeing today in the ecosystem is that the closed models work a lot better, but you can't really work with them, fine-tune them, download them, etc. You can use them through a web interface. And then behind that are all the open source models and the entire open source ecosystem. And all of this stuff works worse, but depending on your application, that might be good enough. And so currently, I would say the open source ecosystem is trying to boost performance and sort of chase the proprietary ecosystems. And that's roughly the dynamic that you see today in the industry. Okay, so now I'm going to switch gears and we're going to talk about the language models, how they're improving, and where all of it is going in terms of those improvements. The first very important thing to understand about the large language model space are what we call scaling laws. It turns out that the performance of these large language models in terms of the accuracy of the next word prediction task is a remarkably smooth, well-behaved, and predictable function of only two variables. You need to know n, the number of parameters in the network, and d, the amount of text that you're going to train on. Given only these two numbers, we can predict to a remarkable accuracy, with a remarkable confidence, what accuracy you're going to achieve on your next word prediction task. And what's remarkable about this is that these trends do not seem to show signs of sort of topping out. So if you train a bigger model on more text, we have a lot of confidence that the next word prediction task will improve. So algorithmic progress is not necessary. It's a very nice bonus, but we can sort of get more powerful models for free because we can just get a bigger computer, which we can say with some confidence we're going to get, and we can just train a bigger model for longer. And we are very confident we're going to get a better result. Now, of course, in practice, we don't actually care about the next word prediction accuracy, but empirically what we see is that this accuracy is correlated to a lot of evaluations that we actually do care about. So, for example, you can administer a lot of different tests to these large language models, and you see that if you train a bigger model for longer, for example, going from 3.5 to 4 in the GPT series, all of these tests improve in accuracy. And so as we train bigger models and more data, we just expect almost for free the performance to rise up. And so this is what's fundamentally driving the gold rush that we see today in computing, where everyone's just trying to get a bigger GPU cluster, get a lot more data, because there's a lot of confidence that you're doing that with, that you're going to obtain a better model. And algorithmic progress is kind of like a nice bonus, and a lot of these organizations invest a lot into it. But fundamentally, the scaling kind of offers one guaranteed path to success. So I would now like to talk through some capabilities of these language models and how they're evolving over time. And instead of speaking in abstract terms, I'd like to work with a concrete example that we can sort of step through. So I went to ChatGPT and I gave the following query. I said, collect information about Scale AI and its founding rounds, when they happened, the date, the amount, and the valuation, and organize this into a table. Now, ChatGPT understands, based on a lot of the data that we've collected, and we sort of plot it in the fine-tuning stage, that in these kinds of queries, it is not to answer directly as a language model by itself, but it is to use tools that help it perform the task. So in this case, a very reasonable tool to use would be, for example, the browser. So if you and I were faced with the same problem, you would probably go off and you would do a search, right? And that's exactly what ChatGPT does. So it has a way of emitting special words that we can sort of look at, and we can basically look at it trying to perform a search. And in this case, we can take that query and go to Bing search, look up the results. And just like you and I might browse through the results of a search, we can give that text back to the language model, and then based on that text, have it generate a response. And so it works very similar to how you and I would do research, sort of using browsing. And it organizes this into the following information. And it sort of responds in this way. So it collected the information. We have a table. We have series A, B, C, D, and E. We have the date, the amount raised, and the implied valuation in the series. And then it sort of like provided the citation links where you can go and verify that this information is correct. On the bottom, it said that, actually, I apologize, I was not able to find the series A and B valuations. It only found the amounts raised. So you see how those are not available in the table. So, okay, we can now continue this kind of interaction. So I said, Okay, let's try to guess or impute the valuation for Series A and B based on the ratios we see in Series C, D, and E. So you see how in C, D, and E there's a certain ratio of the amount raised to valuation. And how would you and I solve this problem? Well, if we're trying to impute not available, again, you don't just kind of like do it in your head. You don't just like try to work it out in your head. That would be very complicated because you and I are not very good at math. In the same way, ChatGPT, just in its head sort of, is not very good at math either. So actually, like ChatGPT understands that it should use calculator for these kinds of tasks. So it, again, emits special words that indicate to the program that it would like to use the calculator and would like to calculate this value. And it actually, what it
also like an extra thing that we hadn't planned for.
And there's another costly problem in one of the guest bedrooms.
This is the room we've got issues with woodworm in the beams. Apparently, I didn't hear them, but you can hear them chomping away.
It's cost us a few days because they have to drill and then inject with poison, and then they have to seal all the beams as well, and then leave it for at least a week. And then we have to check it to see if the creature is still alive or not, and if we can hear any noise, and then we might have to leave it a little bit longer as well.
Because obviously, if you leave it, they'll just chomp through all of them, and then you've got to have a new roof.
Yeah, we can't get into this room right now, so that's put us a little bit behind.
They have a whole team of contractors on site and are hoping many hands will make light work.
Our target is another 3 weeks, and we'll do it. We will do it. We're very close. It doesn't seem like it, but we are actually very close.
While we may be confident, there's an even more pressing issue now threatening to throw the duo's dream off course.
Unfortunately, I have to leave on Sunday. I have to go back to the UK to have the interview with the Spanish consulate to get my visa. You can wait up to 3 months for the visa to be granted. So I'm really hoping that they'll let me have my passport back and come back.
Losing her mum's help at a critical point in the refurb is bad enough, but should Kay not make it back before the planned opening, Becky will be on her own to run the B&B.
It's very, very stressful.
Very stressful. But it can be worth it.
Yes, it will. Yes.
It really will.
But 3 weeks later, Kay is still in the UK.
They have kept my passport, to cut a long story short, and it will be at least 30 days, and we've got Christmas and New Year, so I don't think that's going to happen. And then the maximum time it will be 3 months, which is a bit of a shock, as I only packed for 5 days.
Having sold her home in the UK, Kay's currently staying with friends while she awaits the outcome, however long that may take. Back in Andalusia, Joe and Ken are busily preparing for tonight's barbecue.
It's really good promotion for the hotel, and it leaves people with a bit of a warm feeling about the place, I think.
But feeding 10 hungry guests means tackling a mountain of prep work, so it's all hands on deck in the kitchen.
Do you do this? Yeah, I know how to do I prefer that knife.
Joe's even roped in her visiting mum Josie to help.
I've got 2 people helping me. This is the kitchen boy.
Yeah, kitchen porter, I think we might say. This is one of my many jobs.
And this is an old woman from the village who's really, really
Just friendly, really.
experienced in cooking orange and...
I missed it, I just blew her a raspberry.
You didn't ask me how big, Ken, that's too thin.
Too thin?
Sorry. They've got to be bite-sized cubes, not so they dissolve into nothing.
Like that?
No. I'll do the first cube and you can copy.
That thing there?
Yeah.
That's not a cube.
It is a cube.
No.
What's not a cube about that?
The dimensions.
Okay, well, make it into a cube. It can be slightly smaller, but that's...
I know.
We're doing these fresh salads because I really like to make use of nice fruit and veg in Spain, and it goes really well with barbecued meats. Lifts it a little bit. What am I doing? Carrots.
Oh,
Is it nice, that man?
that is a very, very good melon.
But Ken can't be a kitchen boy all day. The upper terrace needs to be set up for 10 diners.
This very old table has got to go there. Have to be very careful with it because one of the leaves is likely to fall off. So gently, gently. Oh, there it goes. Hopefully it's going to fit back on again. Yeah, it does.
In the meantime, Joe's moved on to prepping the rest of the barbecue.
As usual, I'm starting to panic a little bit. At 7 o'clock, I need to have everything prepped, and we need to start. I need to start doing the little tapas starters.
So the barbecue's got all the remnants from last year's last barbecue. We just got to get all that out. The main thing to do is try and not set fire to this tree. So we'll see about that.
Promptly at 7, the guests arrive on the terrace. But there isn't a single kebab on the barbie.
Everyone's on time. They're all up here by the pool. We're just a little bit behind now because we need to get some drinks served. So I'm going to call Ken. I need a walkie-talkie and see if he can come up and sort out drinks.
With Ken on drinks duty,
Would you like to start on wine or would you like white wine? Steve, gin tea.
Joe can give her full attention to the cooking.
Got to keep an eye on these sausages so I'm not burning them. Easily done. Can't have a barbecue without burnt sausages. But I prefer they weren't. There's always a casualty, isn't there? One for the dog.
Just a few minutes past schedule, the hungry guests can tuck in.
If you'd like to take your seats, dinner will be served shortly.
I think it's all going very well. I think probably we've okayed it as usual. It doesn't matter, people are going back and forwards to help themselves, so.
A little bit frantic, but now that we've fed our guests, I think it's going okay.
And the guests agree.
And it's lovely. I think the fact that we can actually just share not just the food but also stories about where we're from and what we enjoy and what we've enjoyed about the area. And it's just lovely.
Meeting different people from various countries, which was, I love it, absolutely love it. And the hotel accommodation, Joe and Ken are amazing. Feel like home.
Cheers, everybody. You're very, very good help.
It looks like Joe and Ken have succeeded with their very first group barbecue.
It really has worked. I think it's a really good idea to do it occasionally. It's an all-day working event for us.
Yeah, we do it again.
Yeah, but
Not too often.
not too often.
Maybe once a month.
Yeah, it works really well.
It's a great event. We had a great evening. Some
They'll chat away
fantastic
for ages
food.
now. They'll
We saw one of the best sunsets I've ever seen.
Yep. What's not to like?
Coming up,
You do have to move quick, I'm not used to manual work.
Paul's maths are in a muddle.
I was expected to be short, but not this short.
And Becky gets some news from Kay.
Late last night, my mum gave me a call. I opened the video call to a crying face.
Channel 4 Life in the Sun, sponsored by Marella Cruises.
There's a whole new way to do free TV. But just because you can watch a new freely TV anywhere there's Wi-Fi, doesn't mean you should. I knew it! Like it? Stream your favourite free TV live and on demand all in one place. Freely. The new way to do free TV.
It's not only little ones that make a mess. Or get really mucky. Which is why Fairy made the new big one. With double the stain removal, it handles even adult-sized messes. Double the clean, and still so soft and sensitive skin. The new big one from Fairy. For little messes and big messes.
£60 beer. What do I do?
Pour the amber nectar into an old jam jar and just call it something obscure.
Brilliant, thanks guys.
No worries.
It's called Voodoo Jazz Hat.
Foster's, good call.
At Morrison's, save 25% with your More card when you buy 6 or more bottles of wine or fizz, including champagne. Morrison's to shop at Morrison's.
More than just a hotel. Book your break today.
Don't you wish selling your car for a great price was just easier?
Smashing.
It's not magic. It's mindful. It takes a whole force to protect space. Join us. When little time calls for big power, reach for very power. Our easy squeeze bottle of very strong disco sweating formula will cool water at least 5 times faster. That's 5 times less scrubbing. To believe it, squeak it. It's a game changer. Very max power, max clean, max fast.
So this is what people think of when they think of Rob. Funny comedian, Mr. Funny Man, dancing.
Why is Death bigger than Peep Show? Do you think of Death when you look at me?
I do. I think of death when I look at it.
Brand new sketch comedy series, Mitchell and Webb Are Not Helping, starts Friday, 5th of September. Channel 4 Life in the Sun, sponsored by Marella Cruises.
Back in Popperville, Colin and Paul are ready for the next step in turning their rustic Bulgarian farm into an equestrian holiday destination. Today they're awaiting a delivery of concrete to turn their muddy pathways into a safe and solid pavement.
Got some hired help here today. We've got the membrane down, which will kind of retain the water in the concrete for a little bit longer. Hopefully, the concrete will be in this afternoon and we can get pouring. The only concern is that obviously we're on a slope and it's going to slide down. I have asked the company not to make it too wet because I don't want 20 tonne of concrete ending up here by the gates. That's my only worry for the day.
The new walkways are a hefty financial investment, but Paul hopes the upgrade will make the area not just safer but more attractive too.
Just get all the pipe ready to be able to pump the concrete up the top. Just saves us manually having to move it.
And as the concrete pours in, so do Paul's emotions.
Excited, but anxious. Very excited actually. Waited a long time for this.
And it seems that Paul's fears about the concrete flowing down the slope were unfounded.
That's not a bad fix, is it actually?
But as Paul and his team begin the back-breaking job of spreading the 22 tons of concrete,
You do have to move quick, and I'm not used to manual work.
it turns out it wasn't the consistency of the concrete Paul should have been concerned about. It was the quantity.
We've got a truck and we're asking if they can bring it back in a normal truck because you have to pay extra for the pump. So if you can get the truck in without a pump, then it's save a lot of money.
I was expecting to be short, but not this short. So I'm going to try and get them to bring another 4 cube over without a pump, and we can go for it and just get it tip straight in be daft now. We've got this far to not finish it. So another 600 there on top of the bill, but it's got to be done. So I'm going to send it away to get another 4 cube while we're here, and let's get it finished.
An hour later, the truck has returned, and Paul, Peter, and Ken can finish the job. And although it cost more than Paul had anticipated, he's more than pleased with the end result.
Overall, very happy with that. When the time comes to open the riding school in the future, that just makes it a lot safer, a lot more professional, safer for guests and horses and us.
By April, the stable area looks completely different. The concrete walkways are complete, and Paul's added gravel plus decorative carts and carriage wheels.
This was a fairly big job, but it's definitely worth doing. It just makes this kind of thing so much easier.
With one job ticked off the list, Paul has already moved on to the next, demolishing the dilapidated barns so they can be rebuilt.
That's all going to come down. They're taking this section down first, and then they'll do that section afterwards. Once it's all down, the site's clear, we can see what we've got and what we need to do to get it all rebuilt.
Paul wanted the rebuilt barn ready by June, but he's just taken their first booking for their guest room, so that deadline has now moved forward.
We have got guests coming on the 7th of May. I can't have all this rubbish here when we've got guests, so I guess there could be a bit of pressure on time regarding that, but that's a few weeks off, so hopefully it'll be done by then and we'll be organised tightly and done, fingers crossed.
Over 2,000 miles away in Andalusia, Becky is ploughing on solo with renovations at the guest house.
A bit of a moment to capture for my mum and send her a picture of the beams arriving.
The new beams will go in one of their guest bedrooms after treatment to remove woodworm from the original beams was unsuccessful.
We could still hear them munching away at the wood, so the decision has been made now to actually replace the beams, so then we are completely getting rid of the problem.
But it does mean their planned opening date of December the 15th has been pushed back.
So January the 5th, we are going to launch the website. So I'm going to be very busy for the next couple of weeks over Christmas and New Year, photographing everything and putting the website up. So it's full steam ahead right now because we really want to try and start getting the business side up and running.
With no news yet about Kay's visa, Becky's on her own for the foreseeable, but she's been handling the pressure well.
It's absolute chaos, but it's really good fun actually. You never know what's going to happen every day.
1 month later, it's mid-January.
How are you doing that so quickly?
And Becky and her team are getting stuck in with a new project on the site.
God, it's really hard. They make it look really easy.
They plan to convert this old outbuilding into a relaxing space for their guests and hire it out for yoga and artists' retreats.
Yes, look at that. Oh my God, that's really exciting.
While they've blown past their original opening date and the planned website launch, Becky's feeling confident enough in the progress of the refurb to start taking bookings for the beginning of February.
Any minute now. The Almond House website is going live. I've spent a lot of time creating a new brand, look and feel for the guest house. So I've taken all new photography and added the new things like the studio. So yeah, it's I can't wait to. I'm just waiting for it to happen really now.
And Becky's also had news from Kay.
Late last night, my mum gave me a call. I opened the video call to a crying face and thought something like dreadful had happened, but it was actually tears of joy and relief. She has given me the news that her visa is in dispatch. So literally it could be days until she returns. Over the moon, just emotions all over the place, and a release of stress, because it's been 8 weeks that she's been in the UK. Trying to help from afar has been quite difficult, let's say, but she will soon be here, and there will still be plenty of things for her to do as well.
With Kay's return in sight and the guest house going live, it's cause for some celebrations on site.
Like a professional. Cheers! Thank you very much. Thank you.
Leading the renovations and starting up a new business has been a complete 180 from Becky's old life.
My hands are split and filthy all the time, and they throb at night time, keep me awake sometimes. But then, you know, I look up and I look at the view, and I look where I am, and I look at, you know, the big decision that we both made to change our lives, and I just, yeah, it's incredible. I just think, wow, you know, really living the dream. Actually, I have a dream at the moment, but it will all come good, and it is coming good.
Next time. Paul and Colin are feeling the pressure.
I'm not panicking. I don't look like I'm panicking, do I? I'm not panicking. Maybe a little bit, but not a lot.
It does it in the night when we're there, and has tried all the nutritional avenues and all of the other things that she's been advised to do. It's not worked. When she actually went to her GP for a review, she was turned down because she was told she didn't meet the criteria. Now that is what saddens me, because you think, okay, finally something arrives that we can actually use, that's worked, that's been tested and actually is effective, and she can't access it. So it's kind of like, oh, we've got something, but now we can't access it. Now get the cutbacks, you know, because we need to spend money in other areas. I understand all of that, but for somebody who's actually needs it and should qualify for it, she doesn't. So therein lies my quandary. It's like, then then they're like, okay, well, she can have the gastric band, but surely that's a far more expensive option with longer,
traumatic for her,
more traumatic, an invasive process, but also takes longer then to recover. It's like, I don't
the main
understand
reason, Kelly, is because the NHS is a postcode lottery, and it depends how funds are allocated according to
Diabetes, like originally,
yes, sir.
Yes, and your doctors are away. We're happy to do that.
Yeah, but I think, don't you think that the question of Serena doing it, I feel a little bit disappointed. She's able to do it, all the company makes the drug, so she's helped him out by promoting Serena Williams. Your role model, thoroughly in the fix solution. She's something which is good for some people, comes with
That some people a little bit of this knows.
Which is what I actually go on that debate, is that there shouldn't really be a stigma, and it's for lots of different reasons. I mean, she certainly claims at this point that she has improved energy levels, her joint comfort has returned, blood sugar, mental health have improved. And like you say, there may be other reasons we've just touched on, but equally so, I think that's what she is trying to tackle, because there's a lot of, as I say, I have friends on it, and it's a lot of whispering. There's a lot of that going on, as opposed to just us all openly talking about it. But why are we feeling we have to whisper it? And then it goes back to
saying
the
it's
other
safe, so
problem.
that's one good thing.
Well, exactly. But like you said, and it's a whole other debate about food and teaching our
Nutrition.
children and nutrition.
And the poorest people are eating the most nutritionally poor food.
Exactly, and trying to just educate people how to cook, and it has to start with our young people.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? It has to start with schools, but of course that's a whole other discussion. Okay, Anne Hegarty from the Chase. She's going to be with us after the break. She's going to be talking quizzing and her new career move, and lots of other bits and pieces too. After that, after this.
44? Did the dog just snore? Sounds like my husband. Mechabingo.com, proud sponsors of Loose Women.
Zero means more. New Heinz Zero, with zero added sugar and more tomatoes.
Cheese is pats, stretch it, fish it, eat it. It's cheese and you can feel it. Make anything in my head. Watch it, I'm conducting a band. Fun on with the mic in my hand. And it brings the fun. Try to catch me when I start to run. It's wavy, check it out. Phenomenon, best chef. Myths are strong, feelings it.
Concept of see and avoid.
It's 9:20 on a hot evening at Saudi Arabia's Riyadh International Airport.
Saudi 112, line up and hold. Cleared to leave Riyadh via Derma. Climb and maintain 350. Left turn from takeoff.
In the tower, controllers are handling a full roster of flights. Most are scheduled after sunset, when the heat dies down. Everything is running smoothly.
Riyadh, Saudi 163.
Until a recently departed Saudi flight calls in.
Go ahead.
163, we're returning back to Riyadh.
Which changes everything.
Cleared to reverse course back to Riyadh. Request reason?
Saudi 163, we've got fire in the cabin and please alert fire trucks.
This is extremely dangerous. It doesn't get any more serious than this. This is basically a pilot's worst case nightmare.
Okay, cleared back. You can descend to any altitude you'd like.
163, we can descend to any altitude.
When an aircraft reports to the air traffic control tower that they have a fire on board, they clear other airplanes out of the way, and that airplane is given top priority to land, and an evacuation should then ensue.
The flight originated in Karachi, Pakistan, before stopping over in Riyadh. It was heading to Jeddah, but now must turn back.
You're number one for landing.
163.
Saudi Flight 163 is a TriStar L1011.
The L1011 is a three-engine, wide-body, long-range transport airplane. It was designed to go very long distances, carry hundreds of people, excellent performance, and be reliable.
There are 287 passengers on board, and some at the rear of the cabin are having difficulty breathing. The smoke is the first indication of a fire the pilots reported to air traffic control.
The passengers were probably terrified, and the aircraft needed to be on the ground as soon as possible.
38-year-old Captain Mohammed Ali Hawaita is the pilot flying. He's been with Saudia for 15 years and is now responsible for getting the plane and passengers back safely. 26-year-old First Officer Sami Abdullah Hassanain is the pilot monitoring.
How many passengers on board? We've got a full load.
I would declare an emergency.
Yeah.
American Bradley Curtis is the flight engineer.
You really could not fly an airplane like the L1011 without a flight engineer. To manage all all of the aircraft systems that modern day aircraft are all done by automation.
Flight 163 is now less than 4 minutes from the airport.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stay in your seats.
Emergency crews are standing by.
We're on Saudi 163. 10 miles final. Runway in sight. Are we clear to land?
163 clear to land. Wind 320 at 5.
Clear to land. Can you confirm you alerted the fire trucks?
Affirmative.
Thank you. Riyadh Saudi 163.
As the smoke in the cabin increases, the purser does her best to prepare passengers for landing.
Place your hands behind your head, head between your knees.
Saudi 163 has been on fire for at least 17 minutes.
A fire in the cabin can spread very, very rapidly. It can be very difficult to contain, so it becomes a race against time.
Saudi 163, fire equipment is in standby positions and ready.
Please advise the fire trucks to be at the tail of the airplane after touchdown, please.
Yes, will do.
The L-1011 touches down, 16 minutes after the crew first called in the fire.
Tower, can you advise if there's any fire in the tail of the aircraft?
Stand by.
Guys, do you see a fire in the tail?
The controller checks with the fire team on the ground.
Negative. We don't see fires.
No, no fire.
They say no, nothing they can see.
163.
Saudi 163 now turns onto a taxiway and comes to a stop.
Once the aircraft comes to a full stop, it theoretically should be able to be evacuated in under 90 seconds.
Saudi 163, do you want to continue to the ramp, or do you want to shut down?
Stand by. Okay, we are shutting down the engines now and evacuating.
Okay, Saudi 163, understand you are holding and shutting down.
Affirmative and evacuating.
When you have a fire in the cabin, the available oxygen is being eaten up very quickly. Passengers cannot breathe. They are being overcome by smoke and fumes. And you have to get the doors open and get people out.
The plane's doors remain closed. The fire is spreading.
There's fire in the tail! Tell them to turn the engines off!
Firefighters are unable to approach the plane.
With an aircraft of this size, even with those engines at idle speed, they can actually still suck individuals into the engines.
Captain said he's switching off the engines and evacuating now. Put the fire out, please.
We can't because the engines are still running! The engines are still running, I can hear them!
So as these toxic substances continue to build, such as carbon monoxide, eventually you lose consciousness and you die.
Saudi 163, do you read? Saudi 163, do you read? Saudi 163, if you read, shut down the engines.
There's no response from the cockpit, and no signs of an evacuation.
So none of it made any sense.
3 minutes and 15 seconds after stopping on the taxiway, flames consume the aircraft. Not a single person escapes.
My heart breaks for them.
The next morning, the scale of the devastation is clear. The fire has obliterated the upper fuselage from tail fin to cockpit. All 301 people on board are dead. It's the second deadliest single aircraft disaster to date.
It was a very tragic situation. It was just inconceivable to everyone
It's now up to investigators to sift through the smoldering wreckage to find out what happened.
Flight 163 had two main questions to present to the investigators. One was why the aircraft came to a stop and didn't evacuate the passengers. And the other was, why was there a fire on this aircraft in the first place?
His name was translated in many different ways in many different countries, but Mongolians call him Genghis Khan.
He built up his reputation as a brutal conqueror.
The models are not figuring out when they are the apocalypse incarnate.
They're going to sacrifice themselves in order to get you.
These ships have been through hell. We are the first people to see this since it sank in 1942.
All of a sudden, a massive explosion.
There's a big pride coming in there.
Aircraft manufacturer Lockheed sent investigators to Riyadh to help the Saudis determine the cause of the catastrophic fire on Flight 163.
The Saudis were in charge, according to international rules, but they didn't have a lot of major aircraft accident experience. So the U.S. NTSB supported them and helped them with the investigation.
Just some soot. Black box should be fine.
Crew were found in their seats. Look at where the passengers and some of the flight attendants were found.
Investigators discovered that passengers had moved forward and gathered near the doors.
After the airplane came to a stop, there must have been mass confusion.
Did they try to open the doors?
Doesn't look like it. None of the emergency handles were pulled.
The fact that no one attempted to open the doors from the inside of the aircraft leads me to believe that they were already incapacitated and could not open their doors.
They examined the devastated cabin to figure out how the fire started.
Looks like someone tried to put out the fire.
The roof was totally gone. The sides were gone. Everything was burned away. The seat frames with the fabrics were all burned away. Total destruction in the cabin area.
There's something at the back you're going to want to see.
Wow. What do we have here?
When we got to the back part of the airplane, on the left side, in the aisle, was a hole in the floor.
Looks like the fire came up through the floor.
The hole is the investigators' first clue about the origin of the fire.
Yeah, we need to get down there.
Appeared to me that's where the fire started, under that hole. Because a fire burns up, not down. So that made us want to know what was beneath that hole.
Be careful there.
Investigators examined the cargo compartment below the rear cabin.
Looks like the fire burned a hole in the compartment ceiling, right here. Fuel lines are scorched. The throttle and flight control cables are damaged too.
On a TriStar, the control cables, throttle cables, and fuel lines run through an 8-inch space above the rear cargo compartment. Did a burst fuel line cause the fire?
When investigating any fire, you're looking for the causes that may be very obvious. Engineering things, mechanical things that you look at to try and see if you can eliminate those sources of fire and ignition.
Investigators also discover a burned-out hole on the left side of the compartment.
It's a burst hydraulic pipe, some melted wires. Maybe an electrical short. A hydraulic leak caused the fire.
When we looked inside that cargo compartment, there were all kinds of possibilities of what could have caused the fire.
They remove the charred mechanical components for further testing.
As part of the investigation, there were several things we wanted to eliminate at the start, including, was it electrical failure? Was it a hydraulic systems failure? Or some other mechanical failure?
If there is a fault in one of the systems on this plane, then the TriStar fleet, nearly 200 planes flying worldwide, could be at risk as well.
Look at the results.
Lab tests have been performed on the fuel, electrical and hydraulic systems from Saudi Flight 163.
No detectable evidence that the system leaked. What about the electrical system? No, there were no shorts. And the hydraulic systems were also fine.
Tests we conducted indicated that all the failures that occurred with the systems were caused by the fire. They did not cause the fire.
So the fire must have started inside the cargo bay. We need to rule out a bomb.
A bomb expert from the UK was brought in, and his expertise is to determine if there was explosives or incendiary devices.
9 months earlier, the Great Mosque in Mecca was seized by insurgents who called for the overthrow of Saudi Arabia's rulers. Hundreds of worshippers were killed. Did extremists plant a bomb in the luggage compartment of this flight headed to Mecca?
No evidence of a timing device, no structural damage suggesting an explosion, no small fragments in the structure. So no bomb.
The bomb experts did an exhaustive search and examination of the wreckage, including, was it electrical? His investigation revealed no explosives, no incendiary devices.
Let's check previous cargo fires for patterns. Good idea.
Are there any clues from cases similar to that of Saudi Flight 163?
We looked at previous in-flight fires and fires on airplanes and cargo compartments to see what caused those, to see if it would point us in a direction.
Matches. Matches. Take a look. Last year, British officials identified 3 different incidents in which matches had started a fire in luggage being loaded onto a plane. This is even possible.
We had one incident where the luggage was thrown into the cargo pit. It started smoking and then caught fire. And the matches in those days were not safety matches. Today, it will not ignite unless it's on a special fabric.
You ready?
Investigators test how easily matches could ignite.
Hit it with something hard and poof, it would catch fire. That was their non-safety matches. It surprised us that the matches could catch fire so easily. So it was a serious hazard.
The theory that matches were the source of the fire seemed possible. on this particular flight were likely to pack them in their luggage.
Many of the passengers on the airplane were pilgrims heading to Mecca, and they would have had stoves with them to cook when they were camping out. They would have had matches to start the stoves.
Matches seem like the most likely cause.
We didn't find any evidence of matches causing the fire, but obviously that evidence would have been destroyed. But it was a pretty good hunch on our part.
But if some luggage actually caught fire, would it be enough to bring down a sophisticated jetliner?
Fire in a cargo compartment isn't supposed to be able to spread. Compartment should have sealed off and started the fire of any oxygen. Maybe the compartment's fire suppression system failed.
Unlike the airtight cargo holds at the front of the airplane, which were designed to hold cargo containers, the aft hold was designed for passengers' baggage and any pets they were traveling with.
The aft cargo compartment was different than all of the other cargo compartments on this aircraft because it was designed to be able to hold live animals, so it was pressurized and it had a source of fresh air.
An inlet fan and 3 valves allow for airflow. But if smoke sets off one or both detectors, the fan stops and the valves close, sealing the compartment and cutting off the supply of oxygen.
In the case of Flight 163, obviously something in that self-extinguishing system did not take place, and the fire continued.
Good. Let's see if they work.
Investigators test both of the cargo compartment's smoke detectors to determine if they're functioning properly.
Okay, that one's working. What about the other one? Smoke detectors were working. There must be another reason why not. Maybe there was something wrong with the compartment itself. Good point. Let's find out.
Smoke detectors were working correctly, but the fire spread even though it was supposed to have been self-extinguished. And we needed to find out why.
His name was translated in many different ways in many different countries, but Mongolians call him Genghis Khan.
He has his reputation as a brutal conqueror.
The Mongols are not simply another army. They are the apocalypse incarnate.
They're going to sacrifice themselves in order to get you.
These ships have been through hell.
All of a sudden, a massive.
As investigators It's still not clear why the engines were not shut down sooner, or why the plane wasn't stopped on the runway right after touchdown.
The captain's decision not to stop the aircraft immediately after landing and evacuate was reckless and irresponsible, in my mind. It is imperative that you get the passengers out as quickly as possible.
While investigators will never know why the engines weren't shut down in time, could something have prevented the pilots from stopping the plane earlier on the runway?
Nothing unusual here.
They scrutinized the recorded flight data.
Looks like a normal flight.
We have the data on the braking system. Here it breaks.
Here it is.
Did the brake hydraulics fail, preventing the pilots from stopping the plane?
See for yourself.
Our examination of the airplane revealed that the braking system was working fine, and the pilot could have easily stopped the airplane on the runway.
It's as if the crew was flying a plane that wasn't even on fire.
Why did they allow the aircraft to roll to the end of the runway and then to taxi onto a taxiway and then take over 3 minutes to shut the engines down? All of these behaviors are not consistent with how most crews, if not all crews, would handle an emergency like that.
We need to find out what went on in that cockpit.
I'll check on the progress of the CBR download.
The investigation now hinges on the voice or CBR. And it is clear why the pilots halted the landing like a normal flight instead of an emergency. Investigators listened to how the crew of Saudi's Flight 163 dealt with the onboard fire.
Let's start from when the smoke alarms go off. 7 minutes into takeoff.
Yeah, cargo. Smoke detection gear. Now it's A. That's both of them.
Hold on. The alarms go off long before they report a fire.
They got 2 smoke warnings, and then there was a 5-minute and 30-second delay before they turned around.
By the way,
We have smoke in there?
The captain sounds skeptical.
I would say so, yeah. What's the procedure for it in the checklist? There isn't anything about it in the normal procedures, huh? Nothing about it.
pause the recording. They waste time going through the smoke alarm procedure before deciding to turn around.
And on top of that, they're looking in the wrong place. They should be looking in the emergency section.
There was obvious confusion between checklists. The emergency checklists need to be immediate action, and the abnormal checklists are actions that you take to avoid getting into some sort of an emergency condition.
There's a lack of urgency here.
Shall I go back there and see if I can smell something?
Okay, sure.
Okay, if I can see or smell anything, I think we better go back.
Okay, sure.
Seconds later.
Yeah, we got a fire back there.
We do?
Yeah, we do.
It's okay. Tell control we're heading back.
The captain is surprised to learn there's a fire. Only then does he turn the plane back to rear. It's been 5.5 minutes since the first alarm.
I would declare an emergency. Yeah.
Clear to reverse course back to Riyadh. Request reason?
Declare emergency?
Fire. Fire in the cabin.
The engineers already told him there's a fire, and his purser has corroborated that. Captain doesn't declare an emergency. And it happens again. Cue it up to 22:50. 15 minutes into the flight.
Did we declare an emergency?
Negative.
Okay. The fire trucks will be waiting for us, though.
Yes. The captain's ignoring his crew.
In the 1980s, the captain was God on the airplane. There was never any discussion about including any other crew members in his decision-making process, and arrogance and hubris may very well have played a large role in this.
Gets even more disturbing. The captain was asked about evacuating. Play those selections.
Shall we evacuate?
It's the purser in the cockpit again.
Can we evacuate all the passengers?
Class 10, please.
The captain ignores the purser's question.
When we're on the ground, yes. Flight staff?
The captain was asked a total of 7 times if an evacuation was going to happen, and each time he ignored the request.
There were 2 other people in the cockpit. What were they doing? First officer, not much.
I would declare an emergency?
Yeah.
Clear to reverse course back to Riyadh. Request reason?
Declare emergency? He never once challenged the captain's stubbornness.
The first officer was silent and passive. The captain just left the first officer completely out of the picture and continued to fly.
What about the flight engineer?
Reviewing the transcripts, investigators discover a troubling pattern.
If anything, he made the situation worse. How so? By repeatedly downplaying the situation, continually saying things like no problem.
Less than a minute after the flight engineer reports fire in the cabin, the captain asks him to do another check. This time, he returns with a different assessment.
It's just smoke in the aft.
Okay, we're going back to Riyadh.
Okay, no problem. Everybody's panning in the back, though. No problem. No problem. No problem at all.
Downplaying the severity of the situation can most certainly affect the captain's perception of what exactly is going on.
What happens on the ground? It's hard to know. Play from the 500-foot alert.
500.
And 500?
Hydraulic?
You got low pressure on number 2. Looking good.
Tell them to not evacuate.
Place your hand behind your head. Head between your knees.
No need for that. We're okay. No problems. No problem. Minimums. Minimums.
100?
100. 50.
40. 30.
The fire is so severe at this point that it burns through the CVR's electrical.
Just before touchdown, the fire destroys the wiring that powers the cockpit voice recorder. It's a setback for the investigation.
We have no idea of the chaotic nature of what was going on in the cockpit at that time.
He wasted 5 minutes deciding to turn around. He wouldn't declare an emergency even though he's been told there's a fire in the cabin. He failed to evacuate everybody on that plane. And the other pilots did nothing to change his thinking. What kind of emergency training did this crew have? Let's pull their files and see.
His name was translated in many different ways in many different countries, but Mongolians call him Genghis Khan.
He has this reputation as a brutal conqueror.
The Mongols are not simply another army. They are the apocalypse incarnate.
They're going to sacrifice themselves in order to get you.
The ships have been through hell. We are the first people to see this since it sank in 1942.
All of a sudden, a massive explosion.
There would be pride coming to me.
Miss Jane Doe had been sitting here for almost 17 years.
Her entire body is in this little bitty box.
Why? Captain's training record indicated that he was indecisive and slow, and that was all reflected in the events of this accident. All three of these guys were extremely weak. None of them should have been in the cockpit, and certainly not three of them together.
It was literally a preparing of an accident waiting to happen. If anything unusual was going to occur, these people were going to descend into some state of confusion, which is exactly what happened.
Because the cockpit voice recorder failed just before the TriStar landed, the investigation was unable to determine why the captain didn't order an evacuation. But they did point to his actions as contributing factors.
It is possible that the captain was in denial about the severity of the fire and the situation in the cabin. But if he had gone back to see for himself, then perhaps things would have been different.
The other thing to consider is that air crews realize that if they shut an airplane down on a runway, that effectively closes the airport. These are things that can put your job in jeopardy. So who really knows what his logic was? But what is certainly clear was this captain was definitely not in command of this emergency.
Even though investigators are unable to confirm that matches were the source of the fire, they do recommend improvements for all cargo compartments.
To make the cargo compartment safe, you had to put a fire extinguisher in there. And extinguishers. And that's what we recommended they do.
They also recommend removing the Nomex liner.
The investigation went back to the manufacturer. They identified a way to improve the resistance of the compartment, to replace the Nomex and return the compartment to a full idea of self-extinguishment.
The Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, considers the recommendations. But it's not until 1998, almost 2 decades later, that the FAA changes the regulation. Now all cargo compartments on commercial airliners must contain both fire detection and fire suppression systems. In the aftermath of the tragedy, Saudia asks Bob McIntosh to revamp its safety training and procedures.
I was hired to form a corporate safety department, and it was my pleasure to do that for my 6 years there.
There were numerous lessons that we learned from how cargo compartments are designed, and much better designed flame retardant materials are now used throughout the cabin. Our aviation system is safer because of this accident.
All those things are wonderful takeaways from a very, very tragic situation.
This is so stupid. I didn't even want to be.
If it doesn't improve, I shall have to replace him. I can't be expected to face a Nazi invasion with a woolly-headed corporal. Come in. Ah, it's you, Jones. I was just going to send for you.
Yes, sir. Permission to have a heart-to-heart, man-to-man talk, sir.
Yes, of course. Come in and sit down.
All right, you sit down here. You are, you'll see. Can I start?
Yes, of course.
Have you noticed the spring, Master Captain Henry?
Right now, Andy is crushing it. I'm pretty sure I crushed it. When Dave sees all that gold, the partnership is in the works. Never counts Kelly's out. I mean, we're never going to give up.
But Dave, we want to give up on the bet right now. Regardless of competition or not, we're thinking this whole area, so we should do pretty good for the future.
13 miles east.
We're crushing it right now. I mean, we're on really good goal. We see a lot of visible. Maybe I'll just stay on. Maybe I'll turn the boat over to Gary and I'll sit back in the stall weed and collect my royalties.
Despite being down a man, Vernon Atkinson's strong summer continues as he edges ever closer to paying off Claim 56.
The guys are happy. Ryan's extremely happy. Gary's happy. And I think we're going to have a nice pile of gold.
Really nice partner. Alright.
We had another show. Rydell was supposed to come out with us today, and he, typical Steve Rydell, didn't show up. Didn't call. You know, half bag, kiss my ass, nothing. Just didn't show up. So, I'm done with him. Kept plus again. But, maybe I'll see him tomorrow. I hope I see him tomorrow. Hey, Frank, how you holding up? How you feeling?
reactions.
I got a call from the Prime Minister and he said, hey, will you help me?
You couldn't say no. The World Economic Forum in Tianjin is well underway. The government delivered a triple whammy of trade deals. This story seems to be all about making Europe great again.
We can now take a few questions and see if CNBC wants to start.
Squawk on the Street, CNBC.
Squawk Box this morning, Eli Lilly's weight loss pill meeting goals in a phase 3 trial. We also had AT&T buying wireless licenses from EchoStar for $23 billion. CEO John Stankey joined us in the last hour and said he believes regulators will approve that deal. EchoStar shares, they are up sharply on that news, up some 70%, maybe more now. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick joining us right here on Squawk Box this morning as well. He defended the government's investment in Intel, said more investments in other industries were possible, specifically including defense, making a mention of Lockheed Martin, saying that the U.S. government responsible for 97% of their business. Separately, he said if Fed Governor Lisa Cook committed mortgage fraud, she should leave government. So a lot going on this morning, a lot of questions still unanswered as we're all trying to make sense of what comes next. I want to thank Wilf, I want to thank Leslie. What a 3 hours it has been. Make sure you join us again. We're going to do it again tomorrow. Squawk on the Street begins right now.
For the release of hostages still held in Gaza. International condemnation of Israel as its military twice strikes a hospital in southern Gaza, killing at least 20 people, including 5 journalists.
Spectrum licenses from EchoStar for $23 billion in cash. This should add to coverage in more than 400 markets across the United States. You take a look at the share reaction right now. EchoStar, as you might imagine, up about 82% pre-market, absolutely soaring. AT&T as well, even with that $23 billion price tag, you can see shares up about 0.5%. So investors feeling pretty good about this.
All right, and Eli Lilly's experimental obesity pill helped patients lose 9.6% of their body weight in a trial that moves the company one step closer to a potential approval. It looks like the market is taking that as a positive piece of news right now, with the shares up 3% in the free market. We know, Katie, that typically investors like to see these therapies help patients shed as much weight as possible, but side effects are also an important part of it.
Absolutely, side effects and the corresponding dropout rate really in focus here. Let's dig into some of the details with Bloomberg Health reporter Damien Garde, who joins us now. So shares up about 3% pre-market, a much better reaction than what we saw earlier this month.
Absolutely. So these data follow on the arguably more important results that we got earlier this month of how Lilly's pill fared in people diagnosed with obesity. The latest ones are people with obesity and type 2 diabetes. That initial reaction was one of pretty massive disappointment. Lilly had its worst day in about 2 decades and lost about $100 billion in market value. So today's improvement kind of has to be viewed in that context. But I think zooming out, as Matt mentioned, this is the final hurdle they had to cross in order to submit their plans to the FDA and win FDA approval for this pill. So the expectations, I think, long-term have come down based on the data we've seen, both in terms of the percentage weight loss and the gastrointestinal side effects. But in the long term, this is still expected to become a multi-billion-dollar product once Lilly can market it in the U.S.
When will we be able to buy this pill? And
she's asking for a friend.
And what kind of side effects are we talking about? Because 10% seems perfect to me. Perfect.
Sure. So 2026 would be the earliest that the FDA would approve this, and presumably Lilly, is working with all expediency to get that filing in and to market it as soon as possible. The side effects are relatively high. We're talking about, these are somewhat uncomfortable topics for morning television, but diarrhea, nausea, gastrointestinal issues. These are similar to those that we've seen in other medicines in this class, like Wegovy, Ozempic, Lilly's other medicine, Zepbound.
So not milder, not better than those.
No, not at least according allure of this medicine really is the fact that it is a once daily oral pill. It's a small molecule. It's much easier to take than the weekly injections, or easier maybe a stretch. More convenient, and I think there are people who would prefer a daily pill to a weekly injection.
I mean, I'd take the shot if it meant fewer side effects, right? Am I editorializing a little too much here?
You might be.
Okay.
It's turning into the Matt Miller.
Damien, great to get the facts on this. Really appreciate it, and interesting to see the market reaction, because typically, if it's less than double-digit percentages, you know, you'd expect the market to sell this stock, but it's up, again, 3% in the pre-market. We mentioned AT&T's plan to buy $23 billion worth of spectrum licenses from EchoStar, adding to coverage in virtually every U.S. market. Bloomberg Tech co-host Carolyn Hyde joins us with this. For me, as a former telecoms reporter, pretty exciting. Katie, her eyes are like glazing over at the idea of buying spectrum.
But I play an interested person on TV.
And you care because you want to be able to call your family and friends whenever you want with 5G, with whatever's going in terms of the actual broadband going into your home. And for that, you need spectrum. You need to buy it. And this is why AT&T is wanting to improve its coverage around the United States. EchoStar, more importantly, has basically been pushed to sell off its spectrum. It wasn't doing enough with the spectrum that it had already bought. And Brendan Carr, who's over at the FCC, was getting more and more frustrated by this. In fact, we had to see the chairman of EchoStar go in to meet Trump and talk about all of this. They were potentially going to file for bankruptcy. They were missing bond payments. Then they've really been cajoled into selling this off. So they're getting a nice chunk of change. They're also still able to offer mobile offerings with a partnership with AT&T, and AT&T is able to continue to build up the infrastructure play in the United States. This is actually important if we think about the amount of ultimate access we're going to need to data if we're all going to keep using ChatGPT in the way that we are. So this is about US infrastructure at the end of the day.
Absolutely, and we could go on and on.
Did I make that sexy enough?
No, it was compelling. I mean, you really put it into context nicely that this matters if you're just an average person walking around with a cell phone.
And an AT&T contract, because if you have a Verizon contract, you know, maybe you already have no problem calling everyone from anywhere and using ChatGPT.
Let's talk about another piece of news in your world, though, and that is what's going on with export taxes. You have President Trump vowing to impose fresh tariffs, basically on semiconductors, on American technology, saying that these aren't designed to harm or discriminate, but still a lot of question marks here.
And this has been a frustration for Trump since the previous administration. Back in 2019, remember, France, other parts of the EU membership started to impose these digital services taxes, basically saying, look, if you're Meta and you're going to sell advertising within your offering to my citizens, I want a cut of that. I want to be able to tax you. But it's all very awkward as to how they tax them. So it wasn't on profits, it's on revenues. So they get about 3% of revenues, which is sold in their countries. The UK does 2%. But most notably, Trump has been aggravated by what he sees as an impact on the US winners. And therefore, he wants that taken off the table. It's so notable that in the agreement just a week ago or so that we got between EU and the US, the EU specifically said, we are not touching the Digital Markets Act, the digital services taxes thus far, because they want that as a chip on the table to be able to get their wine into the US without being tariffed. So all of this is the ongoing tariff battle. It's interesting that almost AMD and Nvidia are going to get impacted if we don't get a settlement on taxes that are currently impacting Meta, Amazon, Alphabet. So there's a bit of a switcheroo here. Interestingly, Nvidia, AMD are both higher pre-market, so I don't think people are particularly worried about it.
I mentioned at the top 36 hours until we may get a new narrative. I meant really 31 hours.
I've got evidence to do what? Of what crime? Of what crime? What crime? It's not.
Welcome to Shine a light on policemen's conduct and hold public officials accountable. Today's video is courtesy of Yardley Ski Auditing. You'll find their link down below. So go show them some support and check out the full clip. Havering Patrol Base, Romford, a place where police claim authority every day. Auditor Yardley Ski is standing on public pavement doing one thing, filming a lawful audit. That's it. But as soon as the camera...
And hello everybody, welcome back to UK Police Watch. In today's video, what should have been a routine encounter quickly unravels into a standoff that exposes just how easily authority can be challenged and humiliated. A UK driver minding his own business finds himself approached by officers who never over, but it doesn't end there. Watch it closely as one officer, seemingly eager to show off in front of his female colleague, presses the driver for detail. What he doesn't expect is a calm, confident citizen who intimidated. The situation escalates fast. Demands are made, acquisitions fly, and the officer's attitude starts to backfire badly, and it's all caught on camera. By the end of this, it's not the driver left embarrassed, it's the officer himself. As always, we'll watch and react to this, guys, but as always, please do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more UK police videos. Have a watch.
I stopped on my own accord.
Okay.
Right.
Now I'm
So,
responding you to give me your
right, I've just pulled over my van. You didn't pull me over. You've approached my van, haven't you? Without pulling me over. And now you're asking me for the details. I've done nothing wrong. I'm fully insured, fully road taxed, full MLP. No, I'm not. I'm sorry, sir. I'm speaking first. And then you can speak. I'm recording you for my protection. Right, your camera's not on, is it? But what have you approached my van for? Am I being detained? For what? What am I detained for? No, I'm not. Until you...
But if you carry on talking, mate.
What am I... Okay. Am I detained? Am I detained right now? No, you need to tell me, otherwise I'm going. Am I... So I'm being detained? Under what? What road traffic act? I'm not even driving. Go on. Go on, I'm not. Go on, speak. Tell me why. Okay, why have you approached my van? By the way, I'm not an arsehole to the police, by the way. Why have you approached my van? Right, you just approached me. I'm feeling alarmed, distressed. There's three of you surrounding my van. You're laughing at me for? I'm broken no law. I'm not.
Just a quick one. If he was leaning on my van like he freaking owns the thing, I'd be really, really frustrated. Why is he just leaning on there? Attitude stings right from the offset, but my goodness me, look at that still frame there, just leaning on the van. What the hell is that all about?
I ain't got lies to follow. I'm not. By the way, I've got my girlfriend off the book this week. I'm getting along by my day. I've got things to do. And you just approached my van. Your usual phone's very brother.
You know what? Since you stopped, you haven't stopped talking.
No, I don't care. I'm allowed to talk. I'm in a public place. And this is why I'm calling you. Why am I being detained then? You have to tell me why I'm being detained.
You take a breath, I'll tell you.
Oh no, why am I being detained?
Sure you let me speak?
I'm listening.
Thanks very much for your time.
I'm listening.
Please.
It's all a favour, mate. Why am I being detained? Why am I detained at this moment in time?
Traffic act.
What? Right.
You're driving a car.
A van, yeah.
I've just seen you pull up in this van.
Right, okay.
The road traffic act.
So what?
You've got to provide your name and address to me.
No, I don't.
So yes, you do.
I don't have to provide, but I've not broken any laws.
Because you're driving a van, mate.
So what suspicions have you got?
Mate, let me finish.
Yes, you do.
Wait.
You did.
You let me finish,
Are
mate.
you going to arrest me there?
I'm willing to carry on like
For
this.
what?
Because you're not providing
Yeah, I've not broken the law. You can't arrest me.
Right. Are you going to let me finish or not? Because otherwise I'll have to lock you up.
Have you read second then?
Mate, stop talking and listen.
You're wrong, by the way. You know, you're
I
wrong.
am absolutely not
You're wrong. You're wrong. I'm a freak human, okay? Of course you have, yes. My name's Daniel Lowe.
Hey, well done.
That's all you got to get off me. That's it. What? No, you don't. You need to get up on the system, mate. You're not getting me date of birth.
There's loads of Daniel Lowe's.
No, there's not. There's only one Daniel Lowe around here. Trust me. You know, look at my face. You can get a picture on your system or something. Let's check me. Right, okay. I've told you my name, Daniel Lowe. I'm in the field because I'm sure I own. It's actually my name. All you have to do is check the regs. I've given my name. No. You give me your date of birth. On my system now. What's your date of birth, mate?
Mate, you don't understand the law, do you?
I do understand it. Right, I am a free human. I've broken no law. You're under no suspicion whatsoever. You've not provided me. Of course I am. I am angry. Yeah, you're supposed to. By the way, you didn't pull me over, did you? No. You followed me from up there. I pulled over to use the phone. Listen, you've not pulled me. No, I'm not. You just approached. If I approached any useless chief. Well, yeah, no, by the way, I pay me taxes as well. So what have I done? What's your suspicions? Why are you pulling me? In fact, you didn't pull me, sorry, let me rephrase that. Why have you just approached me back? Okay, well, I'm speaking, alright, and I'm speaking back. I don't have to give you any more details on my name. That's it, that's a fact. I'll phone my solicitor right now. And he'll tell me every single law known to man, and you February.
I know this is Scouse like language. What's the opposite calling him lad? Yeah, no lad. Lad, what's happening here?
Well,
Be careful, like, speeding and stuff.
I've got 5 points, mate. I got speeding.
I'm just saying, you have to be careful, don't you? Because if you get sick,
I don't speed, can't speed this, mate. It's combo.
you've got 5 points of speeding.
By accident.
Also, his zips undone there. Look, he needs to do that up. Not a military mind. You always have to do your pockets up.
Yeah. I thought it was a 40, it went to 30. Do you know about Helen? But everyone gets close speeding because they don't know.
Introducing our cutting-edge Smart Zoom reading glasses, co-developed by NASA engineers. No eye exam needed.
There, yeah. Yeah, that's not, I'm not being punished for that. Why bring it up? I got 5 points. Listen, you're telling me about you speeding and points, so I answered. I've already had points. I don't know. Why are you sitting there like a cocky cunt? I don't understand why you...
Hey, did I swear at you, lad?
I don't care. You're coming towards my space, mate.
You're gonna get locked up if I don't let
For
you.
what, mate?
Public order.
I'm in my van.
What's the matter, mate? You're speaking, you're swearing.
I'm inside my van.
Into public.
But you approached me, mate.
So you call me a cunt?
You approached me.
Yeah, so you call me a
You're
cunt?
being what?
I'm not cunt. Oh, I'm being a cunt, am I?
You're towards me, yeah. I've done nothing to you. You approached
You
my
call me
van.
a cunt?
No, whatever. I said you're being one. You're being aggressive. You're approaching me. You're trying to find every reason to arrest me. I provided me details.
I'm gonna have a look at him.
Yeah, and so you...
Is he grousing? You're holding there. He's having an interaction with a guy, maybe taking him seriously. What the heck is he doing there?
Colleague, yes? So you don't need to do that?
What?
You colleagues? Sorry. I was, yeah. I'm going to the bar. I had a good mum who raised me right, by the way. Take it how you want, mate, that's fine. You're not even in the traffic, please. No, he's walking around inspecting it just because he wants to do it. I don't know why he's doing it. I've done nothing to you, have I? I've provided... No, I haven't. No, but listen, do you know what? Because you're a nice police officer. If you approach me and say, can I see your licence, then I wouldn't have a problem with that. It's just, do you know what it was, though? It's just the way you approached me and I didn't like it. I'm not recording you to be funny, I'm recording you because if I'm going to be arrested for something I've done, I'm not broken law.
I also explained to under section 164 of the Road Traffic Act, you have to provide your driving licence to me.
And that's all I've done, but no one asked me for my driver's licence, did they?
I did, but if you've got a licence.
Yeah, no, eventually I give you my licence.
Eventually, yeah.
But he didn't.
It would have stopped all this little debate if you just did it.
No, he took charge, and I assumed that he was the one I was speaking to. He didn't ask me for my driver's licence, he asked me for my name, date of birth. Yeah, so he didn't ask me for the driver's licence.
Just be open, man.
No, but you asked me for the driver's licence and provided, didn't I?
Just be open, mate.
It's not being awkward, but you're being awkward.
We ask those people every day for name and dates of birth.
I don't care, I'm not those people, I'm just me.
You're awkward.
No, I'm not awkward, mate, I've got a human right. I don't know what to tell you, I do you, I don't know you.
By law.
Because you've got police, and you work for me. Do you know that?
No, I don't.
You're a public servant, are you not right?
Don't wait for you, mate.
You're not a public servant.
You're obliged by law to give
Are you
me
a public servant?
driver on
Are
the
you a
road.
public servant?
You're obliged by law.
Are you a public servant?
You only like talking, don't you? Don't like listening?
No, you come to me, I do not talk to you.
I don't want to talk to you anymore.
So why are you talking to me then?
Because we're still having finished with the chat.
Well, I'm talking to your colleague.
You talk to me right now, you're looking at me,
So why are you standing there? You don't want to talk to me.
What?
I'm talking to your colleague.
What am I talking to?
So why are you standing there and giving
I've already talked to him, I'm not me.
He's not doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. You're standing there being all like weird. What are you doing? Yeah, it's weird. I've not done nothing wrong.
You're being very awkward and obstructive
Listen,
about this.
you clearly don't know me. You just know me from this stuff. No, exactly. And this is why I don't like talking to you.
I've talked to anyone. Talk to me, I think
You're standing too close to me. Go away. You're making me feel a bit nervous. You practically behind.
You need to grow up, mate, don't you?
But he's being very abrupt and horrible. Go away. But I don't mind. Why are you getting closer? Go away. I said you're acting like one. I didn't call you a cunt. Did I? So I'm recording it right now, mate.
You called me a cunt.
No, never. I said you're acting like a cunt. And now you're swearing in public.
No, I'm just using your words, mate.
But you're still swearing in public, aren't you?
Using your words.
So what? You don't copy everything I do, do you?
I wouldn't absolutely not do that.
But you just have. You're swearing in public. Yeah, in the past, obviously, I've been to jail before, yeah. I'm not gonna last. It's time saved now, so 4 or 5 years ago.
conversation with you and a nice lad like that. Clearly, you know, your still sample, isn't that? I'm not being... No, you're being proud, you know what I mean? I went to prison for personal reasons, and I'm not proud of it. I've done my jail. I only went once, by the way. And I got out, I was facing my life. Used to be an alcoholic, so I know that as well. 4 years sober and all that. Don't do nothing, found myself work all the time. Doing a nice thing. I help people. It's not my work van, no, it's just a normal van. I don't work in my van. I work for Amazon, drive their vans. Right, so I don't understand why you, like, if you started over from nice, I could be nice to you, I'd have provided you everything. It's the fact that you circled my van. I know that you went, listen, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to your colleague. Right, I don't mind that. It's a traffic act, I get you doing your job, I do. But it's the way, like, your colleague there approached me, it's the way he was, like, cocky towards me. Like, I'm a human, you know. I'm a human being.
I became fluent in Spanish in 135 hours.
You've got to be kidding me.
Most free apps just have you memorizing random words. It's passive learning. You might get points or streaks, but you still freeze in real conversations.
I've definitely been there. So what works instead?
Immersive learning, a research-backed method.
I don't understand. You don't need to treat me like a suspect when I'm not. You're not just... I'm acting like a suspect, mate. No, I'm not. I've provided my licence. No, to him, he asked me for my name and date of birth. He didn't ask me for my driver's licence or anything to do with me. He didn't ask me anything to do with my van. He didn't ask me any details. No, but you didn't ask me for my driver's licence. That's one thing you meant to do, isn't it? No, it's not, because you don't know how to do your job properly. Put it in whatever you want, mate. That's my details you're talking about. My free human right detail. The thing is, you can do, right, you're a nice police officer, you're understandable in there, he's a job's worth him. You're bored and standing there, harassing the public. Why are you here? Listen, I am a decent member of the public. This is my area, where I was born and raised. Where are you from? Why are you here? Other people are born and bred around here. I am in my van. Am I? Because I'm recording this. You come from... yeah, well, yeah, it might do, yeah. So, do you want it to go up? Do you want me to pop? Is that what you're after? Because you're not going to get it. You're not going to get that reaction off me. I'm not a criminal. In there, down on the other hand. Christ almighty, you wouldn't last 5 minutes around here, you. Because you've got a police uniform on, you think you're God's gift. You can speak to the public like you want. Turn your camera on, mate. Why isn't your camera on? Well, you just told me I'm getting aggressive. So why isn't your camera on? You just told me I'm getting aggressive. So turn your camera on. There you go. You're wrong. I'm recording you. It's going on social media and everything. And me, you are the most boring man ever.
You're the one recording it.
That's why I'm not getting your face on, you know what I mean? Or it's you. It's you. Imagine you. Oh my God, is he your boss? Is he your boss? Really? How long has he been working with you for? You don't have to answer that to me.
A while, but he's also been in a long time, so he knows it.
Yeah, are you ex-military? Are you ex-military? Just ask me. You're walking around like a sergeant major, you're not? You're a police officer, you work for us.
Are you a child?
I'm not a child, I'm a 31-year-old male.
Behaving like a child.
And you're behaving like one because you're answering me back like a child.
Still with it?
Can I have my licence back, please?
Not finished with it yet.
You have finished with it, you've got your details, you just hold my licence for nothing, no. Can I have my licence back? So now you're stealing my licence. It's theft, isn't it? You're robbing from the public, man, your licence. But you just put my details in, haven't you?
Don't you give yourself a headache, mate, all this talk?
Can I have my licence back? Can I have my licence back, huh? Well, I'm going to drive off. I'm not detained, but you're not giving me it back.
Do what you want, mate.
Am I not right?
You can come and get it from the police station if you want to do it like that.
You're not getting my licence from the police station.
Drive off.
But you're not giving me my licence back. She just put all my details in there. So who's a child now? Oh my word. My word. You wouldn't last 5 seconds around here. You're going to be all over social media. You know that, mate. I pulled my van over to use the phone. Yeah, but I know, yeah, because you just don't respect the public.
Mate, I'm not going to sleep tonight.
Not you personally, but the police. You don't. Why are you approaching my van? You didn't even pull me over. Go away. Go away. See you later. Bye. See you later. Adios, amigo. You got nothing on me. See you later. You stinking poo. Bye. Hey, you do your breath. Your breath stinks. You stink. Your rust in my van, go away, big nose. He's got a huge nose. I'm going to have a bacon butty. You pig.
That was quite entertaining, that was, to be fair. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Interactive Brokers' conservative and prudent risk management uniquely positions us to pay up to 3.83% on uninvested, instantly available US dollars in your brokerage account. The best informed investors choose Interactive Brokers.
Lending and move markets are on Bloomberg.
Strong job growth has happened. Consumer confidence is up. Unemployment is holding steady. Almost 500,000 new jobs have been added since President Trump has leaned in. It's not the only leg of the stool for interest rates, but it's one of the important legs right now because as businesses now know that the table is set with the One Big Beautiful Bill, they know that they can have the write-offs for their businesses. They understand that they will have the skilled workforce.
Nobody covers business like Bloomberg.
Astonishing day for US technology.
Shaping the region's technology ecosystem.
Asia's biggest tech news and innovation.
Let's suppose you hire people in this business and they start losing money. How long before you say, this isn't for you?
When we bring people on, we're looking for a previous record of success. So we don't train people, particularly on the investing side, right out of college. They would come with already experience. Then there's also the why are they wrong or why are they right? Are they right for the right reasons or are they wrong for the wrong reasons? And then there's also collegiality. How do you work in a team? But I would say that within a 2 to 3 year period, we, usually you get a sense whether, someone's talented.
Do you ever hire English majors or history majors, or you only hire STEM majors?
I encourage my boys to go to liberal arts and to be in whether it was poli-sci, economics, and be fluent in other areas. So I think having a broad perspective can be very helpful.
If somebody is very good at what they do you say to them, you're very good, but go to business school, or you say, don't go to business school because you're very good at what you do?
So I didn't go to business school, and I think that the markets are a great business school. So it's we don't encourage people to go to business school. We encourage them to take the CFA. That's a good way to get more technical trading. If it was something that they feel they wouldn't be complete without going to business school, there have been people who've done nicely with us who've wanted to go, but that's been more the exception.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute news whenever and wherever it happens, I'm Matt Miller at the Circuit de la Sarthe in Le Mans, and this is Bloomberg. We are just seconds away from the start of trading on this, the day before NVIDIA comes out with earnings. Right now, nothing happening in futures. Right now, we're down 0.7%. Just for the record, the all-time high is 64.68. We closed about 30 points below that yesterday, so we're still up there at these heights, but we just can't make any forward progress. NASDAQ futures down as well. Russell 2000 futures, as Katie says, God knows why. They're up 0.1%. ELECT is a power company generating, trading electrical power that operates in the upper Midwest. So for the fantastic people of that part of the country, that stock is up 50% with reinvested dividends over the last 5 years, better than a stick in the eye. Freshworks ringing the bell at the NASDAQ, provides software solutions for small and mid-sized businesses to communicate over email and phone and social networks. The stock is down 62% since 2021. So
there you have it. Let's get to Eli Lilly. Eli Lilly's experimental obesity pill helped patients lose 9.6% of their body weight in a trial that moves the company one step closer closer to potential approval. Remember, they came out with the first of 2 studies earlier this month, really poorly received. This one going over a little bit better. Side effects on the dropout rate coming down as well. I believe you can see that Eli Lilly shares higher by about 3% right at the open mat, still lower on the year, but climbing out of that hole.
All right, so I think that's a fascinating story, possibly more interesting to Katie than the AT&T story, which is, I mean, they're adding spectrum. This is what their customers want. This is what their investors want. They're buying it from EchoStar for $23 billion. It's a cash deal. You can see AT&T shares are unched at the open. So for spending $23 billion, having your shares unchanged is, I think, pretty good. EchoStar shares are up 80%. EchoStar had been, I guess, urged to get rid of this spectrum because they were like not doing enough with it. But now AT&T can use it, and EchoStar can ride on those coattails. Let's get back to the broader markets right now. Ethan Devitt joins us, Moneta Chief Global Market Strategist. And Ethan, I'll start with the Lisa Cook question because it's the hot story right now, but it doesn't seem to be moving markets. The president is attempting to fire Lisa Cook from the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. She says she won't go. No one knows how this is going to turn out, but bond yields aren't rising significantly and equities aren't falling significantly. So does it matter?
I'd say markets are definitely queasy about this. We've seen this reaction in the past. Any time an overture like this has been really shot across the bow at Chairman Powell, the markets will react slightly. So there's a queasiness, but this is not a typical kitchen table issue because the Fed is kind of a long-dated structural, almost an abstract concept in terms of its independence. Much more of a kitchen table issue is something more concrete like we had last week, the uncertainty and the cold shower that was poured around AI. So I'm not surprised to see markets kind of lackluster in their response to this, but it is a queasiness and uneasiness, and let's just see where it ends.
Well, Ethan, let's talk about that a little bit because say that Trump is successful here, that Lisa Cook is removed, and I believe that gives President Trump 4 of 7 Fed governors. What does the market reaction look like? What is the potential trade there? Because so far we've heard that that would probably pressure long end rates higher. Not that you're seeing that too much this morning.
Well, markets don't always know what's good for them, and right now they would probably receive very well a jumbo rate cut in September. Certainly one rate cut is being expected, and that is certainly the direction of travel that a Trump-dominated Fed would bring, is more rate cuts, and markets would welcome that. But then we look to the long end of the yield curve, we can see that the gap between the short and long-dated bonds is one of the largest it's been, and it's getting larger. And this is a pattern that we're seeing repeated across the world. We're seeing the same thing in 30-year gilts in the UK. When markets see that they are not confident in the fiscal or monetary direction of a country, they vote with their feet very decisively. So I'd say it's the sugar rush that would come from cut rates in the short term. That's why markets are reacting, I think, in quite a positive way.
Let's talk about the markets and a little bit of a rotation that we saw over the last week. Obviously, Friday was a banner day for bulls, but I wonder if you want equal weight exposure here, or do you want to stick with that mega cap concentration? If you have more of a value tilt, I'm guessing that you want to look more into the underloved industrials, financials, asset managers. What say you?
I say definitely equal weight. Markets are going to display different levels of volatility according to whether it's the mega cap or everything else. Everything else, the kind of volatility that equity displays is the type of volatility that I think investors have now come to expect with their equity allocation. The volatility they're going to see in mega caps is something totally different entirely, probably twice that volatility. So yes, they need to hold both, but they need to have a much stronger stomach for owning the mega cap tech stocks only. So I would not lean into an overweight in those positions. I would be equal weight. And as we can see, there is some appreciation right now. Certainly for financials, they've had a good tailwind. And like the pharmaceuticals, like that Eli Lilly showed, and a little bit more trading on fundamentals, which is more of a positive side. And finally, I'm not surprised that Warren Buffett is not getting into railroads. That infrastructure ship may have sailed, but the infrastructure that is really exciting investors is around data center and the other picks and shovels around AI. And I'd say that is a very good, stable, long-term trade at the moment.
Well, Ethan, let's talk a little bit more about those mega cap tech names because we have NVIDIA reporting after the bell tomorrow. And even if you are in an equal weight sort of setup here when it comes to this equity market, NVIDIA feels too big to ignore. Put it into context, though. When it comes to sort of the mood music in markets. How important are those numbers after the bell tomorrow?
NVIDIA will always be the canary in the coal mine for any indication of trend around AI or a change in demand patterns, or maybe a change in the efficacy and the productivity gains. And certainly we had a harbinger of that with the MIT report last week. So there will be a zealot's focus on the NVIDIA earnings and really just a telegraphing from them as to what's ahead. They are still the market leader. They have first mover advantage. And I don't think investors can get away from an overweight NVIDIA with the way it's heading in terms of its market cap really ramp up.
Any concern about inflation as we've seen, CPI and PPI tick up, but a lot of people are saying that we're not going to see the real tariff effects until Q3, maybe Q4. Of course, those people were previously saying Q2, but they continue to push that back.
Definitely inflation is a nagging concern. Again, just to look across the world, in the UK we had a 3.8% number that really sent chills through markets. We do know that the tariff effect will be maybe transitory in that it's one-off, but it is still to come. We know that those numbers have been absorbed by companies up to now, and the transmission effect has not really been seen. So yes, we are concerned about inflation, and that's why I would share the view of your previous guest around what this actually means in terms of the Fed. Does it mean that they will simply throw off the guardrails in terms of monetary easing? Probably not, because they have to look at the data. If inflation starts to get out of control, well beyond their previous target, they simply cannot, in their right minds, cut rates with abandon.
All right, Ethan, and of course we'll get an update on inflation, at least in the U.S. when it comes to Friday's PCE numbers. Great to get some time with you. That is Moneta Chief Global Market Strategist, Ethan Devitt. Meanwhile, let's get a check on this stock market right now. We're just under 8 minutes into the session. You can see it's pretty quiet at the index level. When it comes to the absolute change in the S&P 500 right now, it's lower, but by less than 0.1%. You take a look at the split, though, gainers versus losers. You do have more losers than winners right now, but up at the top, your biggest gainer in the S&P 500 is Eli Lilly. As we've been discussing, they got some good news when it comes to the second trial for their obesity pill. That is worth a gain of about 3.4%. You also have Broadcom higher this morning, as to is International Business Machine, IBM, and AMD as well. But then you take a look at the downside, and this explains the conundrum we're in at the index level. You have Apple, Alphabet, Nvidia, and Meta all lower this morning. Of course, we're really in wait-and-see mode when it comes to the tech sector ahead of Nvidia results tomorrow. But let's take a look at the sector breakdown as well. It's what you would expect. You have healthcare up at the top. Thank you, Eli Lilly, higher by about 0.3%. Utilities and industrials having a good day as well. I'm going to go ahead and call tech unchanged. But then you go down the list. Consumer staples, energy, and communication services are your big losers today. That sector, communication services, off by about 0.5%, Matt.
All right, very cool look at the S&P and a breakdown of the industry groups. Coming up, we're going to talk about AMD. Those shares are popping on a partnership with IBM to create a quantum supercomputer. Could the pendulum be swinging? Does NVIDIA have real competition here? Could we be talking about an all-new AI leader sometime in the distant future? This is Open Interest.
In case you missed it on Balance of Power.
The president says grocery prices are dropping. Is that what you're seeing?
If you go back to COVID and everything, they've obviously gone up since then. I think you see a pause in grocery prices right now because we don't know what to do as far as buying goes right now. The other big one that hit us today was this. India grows most of the shrimp in the world right now.
Wow.
And now this, what do we do now? This just got 50%. Is it 50% or 25%? I don't even know.
So how long do you think you can sustain margins here if these tariffs do not change? You mentioned the holidays. Is that when this starts to kick in?
Yeah, we're hanging by our fingernails right now. I mean, we can't do this forever. And I'm hoping all of Trump's tariff deals and everything will work themselves out.
Don't miss Balance of Power live every weekday.
Good morning, good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Welcome back to the opening trade. Watch Bloomberg Tech. This is the Asia Trade.
This is Wall Street Radio. Welcome to Balance of Power.
This is Bloomberg Television. In case you missed it on Bloomberg Tech. Overall, our roadmap for the rest of the world is very strong, and we think it's just getting stronger as we go forward. And as it relates
something that we have to work through with the administration, but as I said, we've had very close conversations, and we're making good progress there. So from that standpoint, I think the overall competitiveness of our AI roadmap has never been stronger.
Don't miss Bloomberg Tech, live every weekday. It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. We'll show you what's happening in ETFs like no one else. ETF IQ, Mondays on Bloomberg.
We published a story recently about the explosion of robotic companies and innovation in China. I think we said there's something like 50 or 60 robotic startups in China. Are we behind, and should we be concerned about that?
I think as far as the state of innovation, no. Most of those robots aren't built for work, for the things that work, which is the entry point for these robots today. They can do some interesting things. A lot of times it's backflips or making coffee or something, but not really useful work. These robots can pick up to 50 pounds on our next generation. So they're great for the education of robotics, getting people interested. But as far as humanoids, they've got to check that safety box before they can come into any of the facilities here. And that's a big bar that we haven't seen much of out of the Chinese robots.
Asia is at the forefront of some of the world's biggest stories.
And we're here, where the action starts in Sydney.
And in Tokyo, get ahead as the global trading day begins.
The Asia Trade, weekdays only on Bloomberg.
Welcome back to Open Interest. A check on the stock market right now. The S&P 500 trying to decide what to do. Currently unchanged at the moment. You do have the tech names a little bit higher in the NASDAQ 100, maybe by 1/10% or so, but it's the small caps that are outperforming so far this morning. The Russell 2000 higher by about 0.4%. It seems like bond traders are pretty locked and loaded on the idea that we're going to get a September rate cut. Maybe that's what's coming through in the small caps today, but we'll keep an eye on it. Meanwhile, it's time now for our top calls. Some of the analyst action in focus this morning. First up, Keurig Dr. Pepper getting downgraded over at HSBC after the company announced yesterday that it would buy the owner of Peet's Coffee for $18 billion. Investors are concerned about the company's plan to finance that acquisition with a mix of cash and debt. Shares currently off by about 1.5%. Next up, we have Canada Goose getting upgraded to a buy over at Baird. The analyst says that its improved product, merchandising focus, and marketing investment are driving momentum. And finally, AMD is getting upgraded to a buy over at Truist because it's seeing more AI traction with its customers. AMD shares higher by nearly 2%, Matt Miller.
Have you still never had a Dr. Pepper?
Still have never had a Dr. Pepper.
Never tried a Dr.
No,
Pepper?
I don't own a Canada Goose code, and I don't know how I interact with AMD, but I probably do.
Hey, you may be interacting more and more with AMD in the future. Let's talk about that because they are partnering with Big Blue to build a quantum-centric supercomputer. Here with more on what that is Mandeep Singh, Global Head of Tech Research for Bloomberg Intelligence. Mandeep, obviously it sounds cool, but how soon is Katie going to be interacting with a quantum-centric supercomputer?
Well, even if she is interacting with it, it'll be abstracted from her that in the sense she may not even know that she's interacting with a quantum computer because that's what these hyperscalers have done. They've put everything on the cloud in a way where you can just click a button, instantiate a server or a service, and even deploy your chatbot or build up your website. So to my mind, what AMD is doing is really kind of partnering with an IBM simply because you don't know what the next big thing in semiconductor chips would be. I mean, obviously it's AI chips right now, but hyperscalers are competitors to all of these semiconductor companies. And so if you are an AMD or any other chip maker, you want to create an ecosystem where you can partner with someone, and I think that's what AMD is trying to do here.
Well, the less I know, the better. I say that I don't interact with AI because I don't use ChatGPT, but I'm sure that it's in my daily life, whether or not I like it. Let's talk a little bit about what this means for AMD. You think about the competitive landscape of the chip industry. I mean, NVIDIA just running away with it, a real competitive moat there. What does this mean for where AMD falls?
Well, so the one thing that has changed this year is everyone So far, what we have seen is AI progress was driven by how good pre-training was. And pre-training was determined by scaling laws. If you 3 more compute, the model will keep getting better. This year, with the reasoning models, with the success of OpenAI, O3, and other reasoning models, everyone has realized you don't need to spend as much on pre-training. You can do a lot more at inference time. And that is what is creating an opportunity for, likes of AMD, because with training, NVIDIA almost has 100% share. But with that's where your smaller players like AMD, like Cerebras, Samba Nova, that's where the hyperscale own chips come into play, because you don't need the cutting edge chips for inferencing as you do for training.
He's telling me that because I interviewed the CEO of Samba Nova a couple times.
There you go.
And I thought it was such a cool story. I want to pivot to the digital taxes that President Trump, he's long had a problem with digital taxes that other countries put on basically U.S. champions, our hyperscalers. And now he's threatening perhaps export curbs in order to combat those, or new tariffs. How does this change the picture for an AMD, for an IBM, for an NVIDIA?
I mean, I think it changes it more for big tech than for chip makers. I don't think, the export curbs are actually be applied. It will be more a negotiation tactic. But for a hyperscaler...
Well, they'll add export taxes. I mean, NVIDIA and AMD already have agreed to pay export taxes.
Yeah. But, for a hyperscaler which has a sizable EU business, and it was quite restrictive in the sense you had to abide by the Digital Markets Act or the Digital Services Act in the US, in the EU. So from that perspective, I do think, this may ease up the regulations a little bit if he's successful, and that means probably more profits in the region for hyperscalers. I don't think it changes, anything in a big way for the semiconductor countries.
And Mandeep, we would be remiss not to ask you directly about NVIDIA earnings after the bell tomorrow. I mean, you take a look at what investors and what the sell side are saying heading into this report. It seems like the tone is that this is going to test Wall Street's faith in the AI boom, that we're going to get an update, of course, on CapEx. But I feel like you could say that every earnings season.
Yeah. Well, and in this case, I think this is the first time they'll be reporting full Blackwell numbers. So think about, GPT-5 and all the latest models that have been released. It's on their Hopper architecture. Now that Blackwell is in full production and they're shipping it in bulk, what does that change in terms of, the training and the large language models rates? And how does that influence, the buildup of these clusters going forward? Because they're talking about Rubin, the architecture following Blackwell. So I think it's important for them to lay out the story in terms of how successful Blackwell is and what it means for ASPs and margins.
Well, the implied one-day move for NVIDIA shares is about 6% in either direction, so should be fun either way.
Are you using EE? EE Go on your Bloomberg terminal?
EE Go on your Bloomberg
I like that. If you use EE space SURP, you get a great picture of the previous reporting quarters and the bandwidth there.
Just an embarrassment of riches when it comes to that Bloomberg terminal. Mandeep, great to preview some of the action with you. That is Mandeep Singh of Bloomberg Intelligence. And good news, coming up next, we're going to talk more about AT&T looking to expand its U.S. coverage in a $23 billion deal with EchoStar. That conversation up next. This is Open Interest.
So you want to trade? Okay, listen. What can we offer you? Well, not much. Only our ultra-fast execution, user-friendly trading app, access to global markets of over 2,100 instruments via a range of platforms with exclusive market tools and a super reliable reputation. Not much, huh? So now you found your new broker. The rest is up to you. FX Pro. Trade like a pro.
Bloomberg Screen Time is back this fall for year 3. We're bringing together the biggest names in business and pop culture, like Netflix co-CEO Greg Peters, Instagram boss Adam Mosseri, and Los Angeles royalty Willow Bay. We're going to talk about sports leading entertainment, check in on the state of the movie business, and get an update on LA After Fires from Rick Caruso and Irving Angel. Expect news interviews with industry leaders, meaningful business networking, and of course, we'll feature some of the best chefs and food trucks from my hometown of Los Angeles. Tickets are available now. You should head to bloomberglive.com/streamtime for details. I'll see you in Los Angeles, October 8th and 9th.
It's a countdown to the market open as we bring you the first trades across Europe.
We'll debate the most important stories and what will drive the big investment decisions throughout the morning. I'm Guy Johnson.
I'm Kriti Gupta.
And I'm Anna Edwards. Join us every weekday morning for the opening trade, live at 7 a.m. here in London.
Only on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
This is Bloomberg Open Interest. I'm Matt Miller. Let's get a check on what stocks are doing. About 22 minutes into the session, we're looking at very little change here. Red arrows, but the S&P 500 at 6436, just about 32 points below the all-time high of 6468. The Nasdaq 100 off, but only 1/10 of 1%. In terms of what's going on in, well, first of all, in bonds, you can see the 2-year yield right now actually moving down about 3 basis points, 369. I did see the long end moving a little higher. Nvidia off a third of 1%, so that doesn't help anything. AMD, as we were just talking about, up 1 1/3, 1.4%. Eli Lilly, after a pill that it's developing to fight obesity, helped customers in the trial lose a little bit less than 10% of their weight, but had the same or even worse side effects than the shot. Still, that's up, and Novo Nordisk is down. Telephone, buying that Spectrum, up 0.5% right now, and EchoStar selling that Spectrum, up almost 80%.
Well, for more on that deal, we're joined now by Bloomberg Telecom reporter Kelsey Griffiths. And Kelsey, it's interesting. Of course, EchoStar shares higher in a big way right now, but so too are AT&T shares. If you look at these numbers in isolation, you might have expected to see AT&T shares lower today, given that $23 billion price tag. But it seems like traders are voting with their feet and saying that the logic here makes sense.
Yes, there are a couple factors that we need to look at here. First of all, AT&T has been looking to expand their spectrum portfolio for quite a while. And this mid and low band spectrum that's really valuable for mobile wireless services is really few and far between at this point. So Dish and EchoStar is helping unlock a greater portion of AT&T's network with this sale. And for Dish, it's also great because it helps them take another step toward resolving a regulatory probe that they've been over them.
I'm just wondering if this helps AT&T catch up to Verizon, which had more spectrum, especially in the most used bandwidth. So I know Verizon also has far more subscribers. Does this help AT&T to get a leg up on the competition?
It absolutely does. At least in terms of AT&T's spectrum portfolio, this is going to help them leapfrog over Verizon and start catching up to T-Mobile's spectrum position. We're also going to see some expansion of the infrastructure that AT&T has access to in terms of these spectrum assets, and that's really going to help potentially immediately, as soon as this deal closes, consumers are going to get that benefit.
All right, so in terms of the funding and leverage, BI, Bloomberg Intelligence, says net leverage could tick up to 3 times it closes a cash deal, right? But does AT&T have the money to do a $23 billion cash deal? How does their outstanding debt look right now? Does this put them in a problem in that sense?
Well, I think AT&T is looking at this as a huge investment into the future of the company that is going to pay dividends down the road. Unfortunately, my reporting hasn't taken me into looking at the specifics of the balance sheet this morning, but I can tell you that this is a very important investment that they're making, and I think that's what the market is reacting to.
I always look at the DVIS page.
I know you do.
So on the Bloomberg terminal, if you type DVIS, and this is something I learned when I was a telecoms reporter, a young cub in Frankfurt covering Deutsche Telekom. Total debt at AT&T is $143.3 billion.
Seems like a lot.
So it CEO of the company behind brands like JC and Brooks Brothers, and the head of Cadillac's F. Weinstein joins the show. This is Open Interest.
Estava sitiada. Nisso eu começo, eu também não sabia o que fazer. Foi a segunda que eu passei ali. Temo, né, que o Brasil se torne, num futuro próximo, um narco-estado. No final, do
People that own big, yes, and someone is ready to get into it, their money.
I think she's a stomach knot. Some of the world's most desperate people who are getting rich.
Repeat after me. I am a winner.
I didn't know how big it was. I didn't really understand what I was getting myself into.
You tell me you have a vision of being $1 billion business, then you're going to have to do what it takes. And if you're not going to do that, everybody's going to suffer.
Money can do a lot of good. It can really transform people's lives, but it can also hurt them.
In case you missed it, on Bloomberg Crypto. What are your takeaways from recent IPOs of firms in the space? Circle, for example, we saw bullish last week. The investor appetite was certainly there for that one. What are your thoughts?
If I use the framework of intrinsic value versus options value, my personal belief is that a lot of these companies in the crypto ecosystems are option value, so they're overvalued in my perspective. And in some cases that is a good thing and a bad thing, which is you're getting more attention, and so you know more about what's happening in the industry. But I think it's really important to just take a look at, how are these companies growing efficiently, where do they make their money, where do they not, and where do the losses accrue. And so again, taking a step back, how do these companies actually grow the industry? How do they grow themselves? And are they actually providing intrinsic value to themselves and their shareholders is what matters most.
Don't miss Bloomberg Crypto live Tuesday.
In case you missed it, on Bloomberg Open Interest.
When we look at our portfolio, we see an IPO pipeline that's the biggest since it's been in 2021.
In M&A and IPOs, we've actually had close to record performances in that space. We're going to have an interesting year.
We're having a lot more conversations around putting dates on calendars. I think we can see a very active second half of the year.
Don't miss Open Interest on Tuesdays. We are 30 minutes into the trading day. Welcome to Bloomberg Open Interest. I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Katie Greifeld. We are awaiting some economic data landing at 10 a.m. on the dot. You take a look at equity markets, not doing much right now in volume, just pancaking right now.
Pancaking. Coming up, a dramatic escalation. The president moves to fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook. She refuses to resign, and this sets up a big-time battle.
Meanwhile, on the trade front, President Trump threatens fresh tariffs and export controls in retaliation against digital taxes on American tech.
And as more retail results roll in, we'll get a read on the consumer with the CEO of Catalyst Brands, the company behind JCPenney and a brand I grew up with, Brooks Brothers.
There you go. Meanwhile, we do have Conference Board consumer confidence figures hitting right now for August, coming in a little bit above expectations at 97.4. That is also slightly above the prior read of 97.2. So let's break it down now with Michael McKee. He is Bloomberg's international economics and policy correspondent. So what to make of this? What to make of this survey data?
This really, when you look at all of the three major indexes that they publish, shows very little change in the way consumers are looking at things during the month of August. The initial report of consumer confidence for August was at 96.5. The estimate rather was 96.5. So it is a little better than expected. There was a thought that this would parallel what we saw in the Michigan numbers with the confidence dropping situation just barely moved from 131 to basically 2.8 to 131. So it did go down in a revision. And the expectations index goes down in a revision from 76 to 74.8. So people aren't feeling better, but they're not feeling terribly bad about it at this point.
So this survey essentially tells us the same thing as the unemployment number, right? We're at a good level, but the question is, are we worsening?
Well, we're not worsening terribly, but we haven't hit the heights yet either of where a good number is for the conference board. So we're still waiting to see if people will act on what they're doing. I'm just calling up the release now. One thing we want to see in this is the buying plans, and it looks at this point like people are saying they're still hanging in there. In terms of automobiles, 12%, that's up from 11.3. Homes, 5.7 unchanged, and major appliances, 8.2, up from 7.4. So as long as people are feeling bad about this, they're still not saying we're going to cut back on spending. And
Major appliances are saying that my existence.
That's what would matter.
Could somebody invent an air conditioner that lasts longer than a decade, at least uses the same gas, you know? Would my boiler please work for an entire year? I can't even get through a season.
Well, that's why they have you covered in the yes, I'm going to purchase something category.
And we were talking with, I think it was Ethan Devitt who made the point that when it comes to the other big story of the morning, of course, President Trump saying that he intends to fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook, it's not exactly a household table discussion sort of thing that's going to rise to that level necessarily in the same way that inflation might, for example. So I would assume that you wouldn't see that come into surveys of consumer confidence such as this.
No, I wouldn't think that this would really register with the American people. They have no idea probably who Lisa Cook is. But if it registers in the markets, and we've seen only a small amount because people in the markets at this point probably don't expect Trump to succeed, so they don't think it's a terrible problem. But obviously, if it looks like he's going to take over the Fed and that would lower rates dramatically and raise inflation, you'll get a big market reaction, and that would set people off. They may not know the cause of it, who Lisa Cook is, but they would know that their 401ks were in trouble and that the overall market went down, which they would see as a sign the economy is in trouble.
She went to Oxford. Lisa Cook.
That's pretty good.
Before getting her PhD at Berkeley.
Huh.
And then, what was she, a professor at Michigan State?
She taught at Harvard and then she went to Michigan State.
Sparties, which I'm a fan of the Sparties, obviously, because they're not the University of Michigan.
I knew you were going to say.
Mike McKee, thank you very much for that roundup. Mike McKee with the conference board numbers and a little bit more on the Lisa Cook saga that, at least at our tables, we'll continue to discuss. Let's bring in eToro global market strategist Lolly O'Connor right now to talk about the effects on the market. We don't see much in terms of the pressure on the Fed here. I guess this market right now is all about NVIDIA. Is that fair to say? 30 hours ahead of earnings?
To some extent, I think, Matt, that's fair to say, although I would say that the Fed independence questions are impacting the treasury markets. We're seeing the curve steepening, dampening the demand on the long end side, and I do think that inflation worry is still top of mind as well. So we are seeing that in the treasury market at the moment. But it is fair to say that for this week, NVIDIA earnings is top of mind. We do expect good results, and obviously the fact that it's carrying now 8% of the S&P 500, it's quite important to monitor this very closely.
We need to get the countdown clock up on the screen. 30 hours to go until NVIDIA reports earnings after the bell tomorrow. So that, of course, is the mega cap of mega cap tech names. Let's talk about mid and high quality small caps. You highlight that in your notes as an area that you're interested in, which I find interesting. It seems like investors just keep leaving that sort of sector for dead here, Lale. What is the bullish case there?
Look, I think, again, higher for longer rate environment is still intact. That's why we're saying that go look at high quality small caps. I'm talking about S&P 600 and not necessarily the broader Russell 2000, right? So we're saying that, look, small caps are now cheapest since 2001, and obviously the fact that near-term rate cuts seem a positive boost for these, mid to small cap range. Again, on the high quality, we're saying that cash is not as abundant, liquidity is not as abundant as, say, pre-pandemic, and therefore you need to take a look at those companies with high quality cash generation that can cover their debt as well in the long term.
One of the reasons, in addition to that high interest rate environment that you mentioned, that has been given to me as a reason why small caps can't seem to get off the ground is that you have fewer companies going public. Maybe we're starting to see some bounce back when it comes to the IPO market, but certainly not back to any sort of normal level because you have companies just staying private for longer, and as such, you don't have that typical premium that you can follow. Small companies go public and then they get bigger and then they graduate up into the mid-cap index. I wonder how you think about that because it seems like an existential problem for that size tier.
Well, I think that, again, given the fact that the Fed is eager to, again, resume their easing policy cycle is quite positive for IPOs, is quite positive for M&A activity overall as well. So again, we need to take a look at how inflation number will come at this stage. Obviously, they are very concerned about the labor market and the growth profile of the economy. As long as, I would say, there's not a major recession, it will be positive for these type of activities and also, again, for small caps to perform well.
If there is a disappointment in earnings, I mean, not just NVIDIA, but let's say out in the next earnings season, or policy disappointment, real pressure on the Fed that creates a true lack of confidence in U.S. institutions, how do you hedge on the downside?
Look, it's interesting given the fact that obviously Max 7 are taking so much of the S&P 500 in terms of their weight, and as we've said, the Fed independence is definitely damping demand for treasuries, and treasuries have not been delivering 10 months since the first rate cut, which is quite interesting. So again, to your question, how do we make some defensive allocations in our portfolios? We're saying that obviously real assets, commodities, infrastructures in this environment will do well. We like uncorrelated diversifiers. Think about gold, digital assets. Bitcoin's volatility has come down on a long-term basis, which again increases the institutional investment in the space as well, which will help volatility go down even further. And it is an uncorrelated diversifier as well on a long-term basis. We again like multi-asset income strategies, and we like regional and international value plays as well to
conversation part. Hard limits. We are not doing anal penetration, which is also no ass the pussy or anal fisting. No electricity, no water play, no animal role play, and by the way, leave the butthole alone.
Yes, please.
Not even a tongue. Nothing.
Oh,
No.
you can tongue it. I think it's something in there like
Thank God.
laying it in there. I think that's a whole different thing.
I'm good.
Ass licking is what I love that. You can do that.
Okay, so ass licking is okay, sir.
Just no penetration in the booty hole is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I can lick it.
You're bringing the ranch dressing and
No,
pasta
stick
salad.
it.
Lick it, don't stick it.
Yes.
I like the good one. Lick it, don't
You
stick it.
said it.
Yeah. All right. And then no animal role play, no water play, and no electricity. Fuck, we rented this house because of the pool. No water
Oh
play?
yeah? You want to find the pool?
No. Yes is the answer, but not today. And then no marks. I know you know this, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is concrete for us. We don't get to change it. We don't get to ask you to change it. We don't get to kind of amend it. On the other hand, you can revoke consent to any of these things at any given second, no questions asked. Sound good?
Yes.
Awesome. Safe words. If you want everything to stop, you would say.
Red.
If you have a gag, dick, or anything in your mouth to prevent you from speaking.
Red. Red.
Both of those. Both of those break character. Look into the lens. That way, there's an extra set of eyes on you.
Betting on it and now are taking profits. If you look at the longer-term picture, IBK up 389% over the past 5 years. So Interactive Brokers has doubled, tripled, quadrupled, almost quintupled over the past 5 years. Walgreens is down 60% over the past 5 years. So getting absolutely stomped.
Sign of the times.
And that's one reason why it's getting taken out of the Standard & Poor's 500 index. Walgreens today down about 0.2%. Coming up, President Trump has moved to
best investment opportunity you see in the world, regardless of industry or geography. Why? And again, how are you making it available to your clients? I think there's no question.
And we'll talk to you afterwards. Tell you
Sweet.
bye.
Thank you, bye.
Go team. Go team.
And use AI you look at things that are customer service oriented,
Oh my God, who are you?
No, I am leaving. That is
No, you're not. No, you're not. You're fucking. I'm calling the cops.
Do not call the fucking cops.
Well, why are you calling the cops? I'm calling the cops. What the fuck is that gonna do? You're staying here and the cops are coming right
I
now.
am leaving. Do not call.
No.
Somebody paid me a lot of money to get this, and you know exactly what's on this. And if he gets it, he will ruin your fucking life. So do not call the cops.
Okay, listen. Listen, we can work this out. We can work this out. We'll work something out.
Put the phone down.
I will do.
Put the phone down.
I'll do anything.
I don't want
If
you to
that's
do
this,
anything.
Just don't. That disc needs to stay here. I will do anything. Please.
You're gonna listen to me.
Yes. I'll do anything that you say.
I don't.
But I need that disc right now.
You're not gonna get the disc.
I need that disc
Stop.
here.
You're not gonna get the disc. Stop it. Just let me think for a second. Fuck. Just don't. What? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Just
relax. I'm gonna make it all better. Just stay.
oh my god.
I promise.
I guess regulators are trying to strike here is allowing people in their retirement accounts to have access to these what are very risky and sometimes illiquid products and keeping them safe from blow-ups. How do you think this is going to work? Like obviously some alternative investments illiquidity
Holy shit.
since they're retirement accounts. On the other hand, when you say Wall Street, I think about crypto. So how does that work?
Oh my god. Oh my god. Just stop. Put your fucking hands behind your back. What the fuck is on?
God, you have such a big fucking butt. Oh my god. Fuck! Fuck, you fucking bitch! Come here! Fucking!
The company has grown significantly over the last year. We've more than 52 stores.
I already told you that. Give you what you want.
Oh, yeah. I know. But I'm also... Yeah. I'm also going to... Sorry, did I do this when I drew you?
Have your way with this fucking pussy.
Is anyone else coming here?
No, sir.
I found a few more things in your fucking house. I think, since it's obvious you likes things a certain way.
That's something good, girl. Yes. Oh, God.
Across the continent, tune in to Daybreak Europe, only on Bloomberg Television. Context changes everything.
Join me each week on Wall Street Week for stories of capitalism from business, markets, economics, tech, and climate. More than what you need to know, it's what you need to think about.
In case you missed it, on Balance of Power.
The president says grocery prices are dropping. Is that what you're seeing?
If you go back to COVID and everything, they've obviously gone up since then. I think you see a pause in grocery prices right now because we don't know what to do as far as buying goes right now. The other big one that hit us today was India. India grows most of the shrimp in the world right now. And now this, what do we do now? This just got 50%. Is it 25% or 25%? I don't even know.
So how long do you think you can sustain margins here if these tariffs do not change? You mentioned the holidays. Is that when this starts to kick in?
Yeah, we're hanging by our fingernails right now. I mean, you can't do this forever. And I'm hoping all of Trump's tariff deals and everything will work themselves out.
Don't miss Balance of Power live every weekday.
It's the second biggest retailing event of the year, the back-to-school season. And as students sharpen their pencils, parents are shaving their budgets. A new study out from Deloitte shows that spending will decline this year as tariffs begin to inflate prices. Here's more as Catalyst brand CEO Mark Rosen. Catalyst owns brands such as JCPenney and Brooks Brothers, among others. Mark, pleased to have you with us. Let's talk a little bit about the expectations because we've seen this, right? That people are concerned about prices continuing to go higher here, even though the rate of inflation has cooled down, the absolute levels are still high. How is that shaping up from your perspective?
Yeah, well, I think what we're seeing this holiday season is certainly, I think for parents, there is a little bit more uncertainty about the economy. But at the same time, their kids are going back to school. And, I think that is a unique thing about all of our brands from Aeropostale to JCPenney to Lucky Brand is that make both the parents happy because they're going to find an incredible value when they come into our stores, but we can also make kids happy because the other thing that we know for sure is happening is that kids are going back to school and they want to go back to school and their parents want them to go back to school with the confidence of having the latest style and the latest fashion. So they're going to come into Aeropostale, they're going to find the newest trends, which is wide leg, baggy, relaxed denim, but they're going to find that it is buy one, get one free, which is an incredible value when you walk out the door so that both the parent and the kids are going to be happy.
I wonder what the effect of tariffs are going to be. I look at those brands, some of them, I grew up with. Brooks Brothers was my first suit, but I imagine a lot of them are making textiles and selling them, cutting and selling them in foreign countries. So how do these higher tariffs affect your margins and then the price that consumers pay?
But I think that's been actually one of the advantages and one of the strengths as we've come together as Catalyst brands. So as you know, Catalyst was formed with this combination back in January, and as we looked at how we come to life for the consumer, we come to life whether it's Brooks Brothers or Aeropostale, Lucky or JCPenney in a very unique way for the customer. So that denim's going to look unique, that suit's going to look unique. At the same time, what we're focused on is how do we take the power of Catalyst behind the scenes for everything portfolio so that we make sure when we're coming to life for the consumer, we're bringing them the best value because especially at times right now, that's incredibly important is to have great fashion at an outstanding value.
Right, but those things, Mark, are not made in America. So, the age of Cone Mills denim is long gone. You've got to import them. They're cut and sewed overseas, and they're going to have tariffs, at least 15%. Are you taking that into your margins, or are you passing that on to the consumer?
Well, we announced at the beginning of the back-to-school season that we were going to hold pre-tariff pricing on all of the key items. So whether that's denim, t-shirts, backpacks, or fleece, we're holding pre-tariff pricing, really last year's pricing on this year's back-to-school items. It's really the job of our merchants to be the buying agents for our customers, and we know what's most important for them at that time. And so at back-to-school, we know those are the most important items, and we're holding prices on those items to make sure the consumer sees the best value. You will see us do similar things as we go into the holiday season.
And Mark, you bring up denim, and I want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in the apparel space when it comes to what's going on, of course, with American Eagle, their denim ad with Sydney Sweeney. You saw seemingly a response from Gap over the weekend with their own denim ad. I wonder, as the CEO of Catalyst Brands, how you approach advertising in this day and age.
Right, so last week you also saw us introduce our Addison Ray fit in our Lucky Brand stores, denim focus, and Addison, we actually took the Maggie fit, which was a 90s heritage fit. Addison Ray was wearing that. Our team actually sent her a pair of the jeans, and she helped us co-design a new product based on that Maggie jean that we introduced last week. And it was incredible on social, and we've seen really strong response in store sales. And we're seeing a younger customer come in for that as they're finding that product in social. So we think there's there's real potential for those collaborations.
Matt, in case you're wondering, Addison Rae is a TikToker who now is a pop star. She came out with her debut album.
Okay, so a musician.
Yes,
from TikTok.
Yeah.
There was a long time when I didn't know who Drake was. So I don't have the best pop culture. Although Sydney Sweeney is, that I know. I want to dig deeper into what's going to happen to Brooks Brothers here, Mark, because I think a lot of people grew up getting a first suit at Brooks Brothers, getting shirts made at Brooks Brothers. The fleece is a brand that I think touches, especially people on Wall Street, our viewers. So are we going to see these brick and mortar stores come back? Are you going to be selling it through JCPenney and online? I mean, what's your plan for this iconic American brand?
Yeah, we're really pleased actually with the results that we've seen in Brooks Brothers. Brooks Brothers has had really strong comp store sales so far this year, and really great product out there. I think as we're talking about back to school, if you go into Brooks Brothers right now, you'll see our university shop, which is really bringing in a younger customer with things like rugbies and V-neck sweaters and sort of the nostalgic past of varsity and going back to school. So we're seeing some really positive things in that brand. And when you talk about physical stores, we're also really excited this summer to open a brand new flagship store at 195 Broadway, kind of in the heart of the financial district. So those full-price Brooks Brothers stores are very profitable for us, and you will see us continue to grow because we believe that full-price store in the right mall has a lot of potential.
And Mark, we've talked about some of the different brands that you have under your stable, Brooks Brothers being one of them. When you look at the landscape overall, you are starting to see some consolidation among consumer brands. Do you think that there's room to add to your portfolio here?
Our focus right now, like I said, we came together in January and we're really building the combined power of Catalyst and putting together our sourcing operations, putting together our store operations, and making sure that everything we do behind the scenes, we do in the most efficient way so that we can bring the consumer the best value. And then we're focused on the front end and making sure that each of our brands comes to life in a unique and distinct way for consumers. If you look across the portfolio from Brooks Brothers to JCPenney to Eddie Bauer to Nautica to Lucky and Aeropostale, right, they each come to life in a different way. We are building a platform, and we believe as we build those core capabilities that we can add more brands into the platform, and those brands are going to benefit from that combined power of sourcing and bring the consumer great brands at a better value.
All right, Mark, great to get some time with you. Really appreciate it. As you prepare for, I guess, your busiest season, Catalyst Brands CEO Mark Rosen getting ready for back to school at JCPenney, Aeropostale, Eddie Bauer, Brooks Brothers, and more. Let's get a check on what's going on in the markets right now. We do see, we pretty much unchanged on the S&P, but we were in the red, and now we're in the green as NVIDIA swings from losses to gains. The NASDAQ doing a little bit better, up 0.2%, a 10-year yield rising a little, 427, 427.90, still a pretty low level.
Yeah, pretty much on when it comes to the 10-year yield. I will note that on the S&P 500, trading volume is off by 28% from its 30-day average, so that's the whole story. There is some action to be found underneath the surface, though, so let's take a look at some of the individual movers here. We do have analyst upgrades from Baird, retailers, VF Corp, and Canada Goose race to outperform the firm, citing clarity with tariffs, which is interesting because it feels like there's still a lot of big question marks out there.
We've gone through this before, I think, but do you know who Jeff Spicoli is?
We've definitely gone through it before, and I still don't know.
He made Vans famous in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Eli Lilly's weight loss pill moves on after a trial shows that patients lost 9% of their body weight in the trial, and the shares are up 2.9%, which is better than last time when they lost more weight, but I guess it's because this means they move one step closer to an approval.
Yeah, this is good news for Eli Lilly. This year has been about trying to get their mojo back. I mean, they're still down about 7% year to date, but today's movement certainly helps.
Coming up, I'm very excited for this.
I know.
Cadillac securing the services of two of the most popular and beloved drivers in Formula One ahead of their debut. We'll speak to Dan Tauris, Cadillac F1 CEO, next. This is Bloomberg Open Interest.
There is a nice confluence between the long-term investor and what we're trying to do. We have an operating principle that's in our handbook. Take the long view. When we went public, we put a timeline up on the screen for the whole company in an all-hands meeting. And that timeline went from founding to 100 years out. And the IPO was one dot in 1 year on that timeline. And we tried to orient the employees to, this is a wonderful event, this IPO. This is a moment in time on a very long journey.
This is a company that you want to exist in 100 years.
We do.
Wall Street doesn't think that.
No, they think in like hours. Yeah. And what I've learned of Wall Street, and particularly Wall Street investors, when they say they are long-term investors, that means they'll keep your stock for like a month. There has been one instance where I did something that was just for short-term stock, and I felt so bad about it that I don't think I'll do it again. There was one quarter, a few quarters ago, we were not going to beat the quarter. We were going to probably just hit it, and so far we beat every quarter. So we were all like, wait, what? Our perfect record. We're like a 4.0 student that is going to get a B for the first time. This is not good. And I decided that for a short period of time, at the end of a lesson and a half, we would show 2 ads instead of 1. Turns out that by itself was good enough to beat the quarter, but it's bad for the product. It's not good. After that, I never do that again.
Top names at the Fed are on Bloomberg.
We're seeing pressure on the inflation side of the mandate. That's where our miss has been bigger, and it's been lasting for longer. We haven't hit on inflation in 4.5 years. What I hear from people is that the pain of inflation is really biting. And so we have to balance those two sides of our mandates when we think about setting correct policy. And we have to look at if we're missing, by how much, and for how long do we expect those misses to last.
Nobody covers the Fed like Bloomberg.
Bringing you the latest in tech and AI news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Tom McKenzie in Paris, and this is Bloomberg.
In case you missed it on Bloomberg Tech.
Overall, our roadmap for the rest of the world is very strong, and we think it's just getting stronger as we go forward. And as it relates to China, it's something that we have to work through with the administration, but as I said, we've had very close conversations, and we're making good progress there. So from that standpoint, I think the overall competitiveness of our AI roadmap has never been stronger.
Don't miss Bloomberg Tech, live every weekday.
In case you missed it, on Bloomberg Open Interest.
When we look at our portfolio, we see an IPO pipeline that's the biggest since it's been in in 2021.
In M&A and IPOs, we've actually had close to record performances in that space. We're going to have an interesting year.
We're having a lot more conversations around putting dates on calendars. I think we could see a very active second half of the year.
Don't miss Open Interest live weekdays. An iconic American luxury brand is joining Formula One next year. GM's Cadillac team will make its debut with two superstar drivers, 10-time Grand Prix winner Valtteri Bottas and 6-time Grand Prix winner Sergio Checo Perez. Here with us now is Cadillac F1 CEO Dan Towers. Dan, it's great to have you here with us. I'd love to first just get a little bit of a background check on how you got into this business from running Gamebridge, from being an insurance executive to now running teams across NASCAR, IndyCar, and starting next year Formula One.
Yeah, so it really started in sponsorship, with the team and a partnership with Andretti. But then kind of when we look at TWG Global, the parent of our company and what Mark Walters built in a sports media company, we saw a thesis in motorsport to get involved and to really focus on Formula One, but not just Formula One. It's really every major motorsport globally, from Australian V8 supercars to sports cars, NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula E, and now Formula One. So we're very excited about that.
So it's I think really cool that you have the resume you do, because when I talked to Boris, I asked him, how do you convert motorsports fans into buyers of Chevys, Cadillacs, Corvettes, what have you? Because you run this insurance company and that's how you get your start here. I guess you've had great experience in doing those conversions. Now you hire people like Valtteri Bottas. I want to take a look at the tweet that he put out this morning. This is a guy who not only is he an incredibly talented driver, obviously a Grand Prix winner, but he knows marketing too. This is what he posted this morning. I guess his dedication to an American brand here.
Yeah, we're so excited about these two. I mean, they're both characters. They have story careers in Formula One, but they're not done. This is the next chapter. They're the chosen two for the Cadillac Formula One team to hit the grid in 2026, and we're super excited about them.
So how long are you giving the team before you expect that you're going to win the race?
It's a difference in, but it's a team. Just bring that XP car, get there. They know they
powertrains in a few years down the road. I think you can become champions.
We're committed to this process. It is a multi-billion-dollar investment in total. We'll have over 600,000 square feet of manufacturing under roof in the U.S. between Indianapolis and Charlotte team and company, and all those people working together. We also have a base of operations and civil operation for Cadillac Formula One. And so really when we hit the grid, it's a new chassis and a new power competitive. And so we figure out where the cars back together. When we look at what progress look like, the team never gets to the winner, but being tremendous. And so together with General Motors, with Mark Royce and the tremendous team there, Mary and Mark, we're going to food chain in Formula One.
You hadn't easily thought about them a sports car brand. Obviously they had the CSV and now they have the Blackwing, which are, creme de la creme. But what do you
push these news to really even start to push that we're seeing the growth of Formula One. And so I think it has the Cadillac with the running
Earlier in the show, we road tested the Vauxhall Monaro, the Chrysler 300C, and of course the Super
supercharged Jaguar S-Type. And we thought that on face value they were all pretty good, but obviously we had to find a winner. And this meant going to our favourite beach in Wales and then driving up and down it very fast. So, here we go. Which one will be the victor? Will it be the big, simple crocodile? Will it be the part German, part American Arnold Schwarzenegger? Or will it be Raffles, the gentleman thief? The first test is a simple drag race. A good engine will give it thrust. A good chassis will keep it straight and true on these shifting, slippery sands. Foot's buried, not what you'd call a lightning start. James is having a real mess. Come on, Australia. That Jag is seriously flying. Oh, they are just in my dust. 130. That, I believe, is mine. The British have fought them on the beaches and won. Now the Vauxhall shouldn't have lost that. So maybe the problem is the mountain of torque. Maybe when you put your foot down it just digs a big hole in the sand, like it's trying to burrow its way back to Australia. To find out, we've decided to do a simple Top Gear torque test. We're going to see how big a hole this thing actually digs when it sets off. Okay, James? You ready? 1, 2, 3, go! It's a pretty big hole. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
What do you think?
That's a lot of torque. Actually, it's managed to move a whole beach from there onto to me.
Next, it's the handling challenge on Top Gear's low-budget circuit. And first to go, it's the Jaguar.
There you go.
Absolute joy. Thank you very much. Gentlemanly this car, but still potent. A sterling effort there, and now it's the Monaro's chance to make up for that third in the drag race. Oh, yes. Well, that's it, I'd say. It works, it really does work. It's easy. Strangely lovable. The Monaro did beat the Jag, but now it's the turn of the Chrysler. And oh dear. The Americans lecture the world on democracy and then won't let me turn the traction control off. It's supposed to be a big, bad, dangerous muscle car. Well, sure you might hurt yourself. Car designed by health and safety this one. So that's 1 victory each for the Brit and the Aussie, and no points at all for the American. There's a very good reason for that. This car has some serious problems. The brakes are lousy, there isn't enough torque, it doesn't sound right, the steering's completely lacking in feel, and then, oh my god, there's the ride and handling. The suspension is so soft that when you run over a bump, it can't react quickly enough. So you get this huge jolt, and then the whole car starts to pitch and wallow. And of course, because the suspension is so soft, it leans over in the corners onto its door handles. I keep looking out there thinking, maybe it would be more at home in the sea. Maybe it's a boat. It certainly handles like one. To see what the others thought, we all swapped cars, and immediately the Jag and the Vauxhall got the thumbs up. Oh yes. Now this feels much more like it. It's amazing how the British managed to get 400 horsepower from this tiny little engine, while the others have only managed to get 330, 370 from huge great runs. But the American was taking yet more there was a huge letdown. But can that stupidly low price and those looks make up for the massive dynamic shortfalls? With the tide coming in, we went for a chat in the low-budget Top Gear Winnebago. So, the Chrysler then. What do we think?
I think it looks fantastic.
It looks great.
Every time I saw it on the beach.
Looks great. And if it is £29,000, as they say it's going to be, that's an astonishing price. However,
it doesn't go like it looks.
That's
the thing that just because I look at it and I think it's going to be sort of whooshy and svelte. But the engine isn't whooshy enough low down, and the ride's just too knobbly, and that's the end of it as far as I'm concerned. Even before you get to the mock Tudor steering wheel.
So we think they were that close to making a great car.
It wouldn't have taken
how annoying it and blew it.
Such a shame.
Which of course leaves us with the other two, the Jaguar,
which I do like.
Oh yeah, well apart from that mouth thing. I have found an angle from which that car looks good.
Underneath?
No. Bang side on.
Yes,
if you absolutely side on, it looks okay, but if you I've ruined the look of my car.
It's about the everyday experience. Every time you're inside that Jag, two advantages. One, you haven't got to look at the front of it, and number two, it does feel special. I mean, they really have done the business on it.
Really fast car. However, this is all said as I have fallen totally in love today. With the Vauxhall, yes, I got in it, and within 300 yards, I just thought someone in Australia had a picture of me on their desk, and they went, let's build that bloke a car.
Oh, they better be allowed. And they had a picture of me and they said, it's so good, even this bloke's gonna like it. When you press the button, as you sort of change, you short shift up and you press the button, you get that deep down burble that sort of goes up the back of your spine, and you sort of think, ooh.
I really like the looks of it too.
Oh no, I can't believe so. I'm going to be left outvoted. The verdict is going to be.
The Top Gear verdict is a remarkable one. By a margin of 2-1, we went for this astonishing Vauxhall. This is just fabulous, it really is. Whoever would have thought that an Australian car with a huge American engine could work this well? There's a brutality to it, and yet it responds just the smallest touch. Theirs, though, is it's comfortable, it's spacious, it's well priced, and it does what a muscle car should. It puts a huge smile on your face. The Vauxhall.
Yes.
Well, do you know what it puts me in mind of? Seriously. Is a 1990s Aston Martin Vantage. There's that same sense of kind of infinite power and the same sense of hugeness. Except to what? You pay £100,000 for a 1990s Vantage. That's 33.
Yeah.
It's a fabulous car.
I mean, it won me over because after we'd finished, I drove it back.
Yeah.
You know, and I do agree. It is quite magical.
I have to say, I think it's one of the kind of top 5 cars. Anyone who buys a car now for around £30,000 and doesn't buy one of those is either mad or boring.
Yeah,
it's
fair enough.
Completely in love.
So, Vauxhall really having quite a good show this week on Top Gear because we all love that. And well, if you've just joined us, this isn't going to make much sense, but then that's your fault. Where were you? But basically, it's Vauxhall that are responsible for Jeremy having to eat his own hair. Jeremy, if you'd like to bring on, we've had Chef Anthony Waller Thompson here preparing the dish with Joe's hair, and there it is. Ta-da! Oh!
It looks worse than I expected. Holy mother of... it looks like he's vomited on the plate, and then...
Can I tell you something else? And then the dog slept on it. Can I tell you something else? It's not as warm as you might hope it was.
The temperature is the least of my worries.
Oh, look at that.
You saw this is my hair.
Oh, most of it, yeah. Oh, hang on. No, it is all yours. You said it. You've got to eat it. Come on, bring it down. Swallow that. Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. I'll have a hair in my mouth.
Yeah, you will get that.
I'll to swallow it, don't I? I've just swallowed it. Well, next week, these two are going to be driving around in a wide range of expensive cars. I shall be going backwards, licking hairballs, and we've got the Ferrari Enzo coming. We'll see you then. Good night.
Pushing the cars to their absolute limits to see if the motors are as great as they claim. Top Gear is here next on You and Dave.
It's the part he's been waiting for. It's the perfect fit for the role. eBay sponsors motoring on You and Dave.
In 6 months, once you've fully restored it, you have to sell it. But any profit you make, you keep. You could win big enough for the deposit on your first home, on the Great House Giveaway. Today, we're in beautiful southwest Wales, where tourists head for the coastline in their thousands. But we're not looking there, because we can't afford it. No. We're going inland and exploring the small villages and towns where property is a bit more affordable. 260,000 is the average, but terraces are a bit cheaper, around the 175k mark. Because this is such a desirable part of the world to live, saving up enough cash for a deposit can be a real struggle. So that's where I come in. Time to meet our budding innovators.
My name's Fiona, I'm 27 years old and I'm a adult registered nurse. It's quite hard for someone my age to get on the property ladder. The prices of houses locally, they're quite expensive. I'm newly qualified. I've only just started being able to save money, so looking at the prices around, it's going to take a good few years to buy a place of my own. I don't have building skills, but I do love a flat back, and I've turned my hand to anything. The reason behind taking part is to gain experience and skills and learn for the future if I want to do it again.
I've arranged to meet Fionn in a castle, Picton Castle, in Haverfordwest. So Fionn, how are you feeling?
I'm really excited. I'm a bit nervous as well. My belly's turning a bit, but I am really excited.
What do you hope to achieve from it? Best case scenario?
That everything runs perfectly well, no glitches, and make a good amount of profit at the end. That'd be perfect.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah.
Nothing going wrong in a renovation is really a dream, but who knows what could happen. Now you're going to be doing this job with a partner. What do you hope your partner brings to the table?
As long as they're like a nice person, someone that can see work and dedicated to the job, that'd be quite good.
You ready to meet your partner?
Yes, I am.
Cool, let's bring him over.
My name is Georgia, I'm 26 years old and I work for the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park Trust. I moved to Pembrokeshire when I was about 4. My parents wanted to renovate a chapel into a children's play centre of all things. It was really successful and we've lived here ever since. I always thought that every family did renovations on the weekends, but I realised having grown up that that's actually not the case. But it has taught me quite a few skills I hope will come in handy. I had to move away to find work, but now that I've moved back, I need to find a property here so I can stay, so I can secure my future and be close to my family, hopefully. I'm feeling a little bit nervous about the project, but mostly confident and excited because I think that no matter what we face, what challenge we face, we'll have good achievements and results at the end.
Oh, I know you! We used to go to school together.
No way! And here's me about to do introductions.
No need, it's a small world.
Well, anyways, Fionn meet Georgia, Georgia meet Fionn. Fionn, I'm going to let you know something about Georgia. Back in your school days, did you know that Georgia used to go with her parents to do renovations after school?
No.
So much so that she thought that was a normal after school activity. So, renovation-wise, she may come in handy, but Georgia, I have to ask, what sort of DIY skills have you got?
I wasn't massively heavily involved in the more technical side of the renovations, being a lot younger at the time, but I was, the chief painter. I was in the garden doing all those bits and bobs, but I did watch Mum and Dad. They did renovate quite a few properties, so I know what to expect at least.
Why is this opportunity important to you?
So the profit at the end would be nice, but I think the skills to have those would be incredible. I'd like to do renovation projects in the future at some point, so to make those inevitable mistakes so that I can go ahead with the next renovation project more confident then.
And with an unstable property market, that's not a bad attitude to have. Okay, let's find them for property. And to do that, I've enlisted the help of Welsh property expert, Caris Davies.
Thank you, Ty. All right, let's have a look at what we've got. So, there wasn't a lot of choice. First off, a chapel. Guided at 85k, it's not huge, but it needs absolutely everything doing to it. And the reason why I'm interested, well, it's the location. Because done up, it's got to be worth over 300,000. The second lot is a little more conventional. 2-bedroom terrace in the village of Clynderwen, which is halfway between Narberth and Crymych. I have to admit, I do feel a little sad when I see the previous owner's possessions just left here like this. But if we do manage to buy it for the guide price of 80k, well, done up, it's worth up to 200k, so worth the clear out. And off to Carmarthen for the third house. 3-bedroom terrace, it doesn't need much doing to it, so this would be a quick flip. Which is why the guide price is 90 to 100k. Done up, not worth much more.
Right, so ladies, I gave you 3 properties to choose from, and I wanted to find out from you which property you would have chose if you had the chance, and why.
Out of the 3, I'd have chosen property number 2, the one in Clynderwen. It's a good location. It seems like a bit of a smaller project to start as a first project, so it seems ideal.
What about yourself, Georgia?
Yeah, I agree entirely. So property number 2 would be best for me. I think the area is brilliant. It did seem to be in a reasonably good condition, so fingers crossed.
Okay, cool. Good reasons. Well, ladies, let's see what happens at auction.
First up in the auction today is this chapel in the area of Milford Haven. We're in Wales. We have a lot of chapels, and you can pick these up for a song, but they can become money pits. This doesn't have planning permission. I'm sure it will. In 6 months, unlikely. And for that reason, I am out. And I wasn't the only one hesitating, because the chapel failed to sell. Okay, next up is this 2-bedroom property in the village of Clynderwen. Lovely location, very desirable, close to Narberth, Pembrokeshire, but similar properties on that street have fetched close to the 200 mark. Guide price of 80, I am definitely going to be bidding on this one. I'm going to set my maximum bid at 125, and we'll see how we go. Now, the housing market in Pembrokeshire is hot, and I'm not the only one chasing after this cottage. In a matter of seconds, the price jumps up from 80,000 to 120,000. Ah, 121. I've been outbid. Another 30 seconds on the clock. I'm going to place a bid. So my proxy bid is 125. Oh my goodness. 126. The maximum price I've set myself is 125,000. I wouldn't recommend going over your maximum bid, but on this occasion, I think I've got a gem here. Down to the last 10 seconds. Unsold to me. 127 over my maximum bid, but I think it's a gem. And the last house in Carmarthen, well, that sold for 110,000.
Good job, Caris. We managed to buy them the house that they both wanted. Let's see what they think when they get close up. Right, ladies, here we are. This ugly duckling could be your key to buying your first home. Georgia, tell me what you think.
I'm still glad that this is the house that we ended up with.
Good start.
Yeah, I think it's got a lot of potential. It does look a little bit small on the outside. I'm hoping there is a lot more room inside, and things like the windows and doors need to be replaced, but we can get on to that. But otherwise, yeah, I'm happy with it.
What about yourself?
If you look at the houses next door, they're decent, they're tidy, so like a bit of wash and a lick of paint to make a big difference to the outside. But we can't actually see inside yet because there's nets on the window, so we can't really anything inside.
I bet. And it's always nice when you've got what looks like a nice street, nice houses next to you, because you know that you've got a property that you can add value to and hopefully bring the price up a bit.
Yeah.
Hopefully not a lot of people will be looking at this one. It gives you the opportunity to force the appreciation and hopefully get a good price when you sell.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, ladies, I'm sure you can't wait to go inside. George, you look like you're ready to go, so why don't you go first?
Oh, goodness. Oh, it's lots in here. Oh, lots of spiders too. Don't like spiders. Oh, wow. Lots of things. Wow. A mountain of things. Postman's been busy. There's a lot of stuff here. And a lot of sorting to do. Oh. Married 2nd of September 1989. Cute. Dear dear. Lots and lots of rubbish in here. It's going to take a while to clear up. Really sad to see somebody living in these conditions. Really sad. Just so much stuff. Oh, that is a bit of a problem. Georgia knows builders, that's fine. That can be sorted. They're cute, cute jazz. It's like a soup shop. An empty soup shop. Stairs feel safe enough. Oh, there's literally stuff everywhere. Wow, it's so dark in here. Right, got some planning to do.
Well, ladies, here we are in the kitchen of your project for the next few months. John, I'm going to start with you. What are your impressions going around the property for the first time?
There's a lot of work. Whoever lived here last, they've obviously lived here for years, so there's a lot of tidying up before we know what we're dealing with, really.
George, what are your thoughts?
So I think it's got the wow factor, but not in a good way. It's been quite a shocking reveal. I think it is the amount of things in here, but I think decent sized rooms, which is a really good start. And I can see that it is a lot bigger on the inside than it appeared on the outside, so I think there's still a lot of potential here, just once you get over the initial shock.
Right, ladies, are you ready to hear some numbers?
Yes.
We got this property at auction for £127,000. We're going to need to leave some money aside for fees. So, with all that being said, the budget you have to turn this property around is £25,000. But the market is changing so quickly right now, and you guys need to take advantage of it before it changes negatively on you, right? So, you have 4 months to do this up and get it sold. You kind of need to get in as quickly as you can and get out. I think you guys can do it. What do you think?
I like your optimism. Yeah. I've got a good feeling that we'll work pretty well as a team, and I think that we're both as determined as each other.
We've got a good shot.
Yes, exactly. We can only try as hard as we can and see what happens.
I'm going to leave you to it, and I'll see you when you're halfway through. Fiona and Georgia have quite a project here, but they have a huge network they can tap into. The property market is also changing very quickly, so speed is going to be a key element if they stand to make a profit here.